conservatorships for very many people, because it's a terrible legal entity, conservatorships, when they're not fairly applied.
She argues there's an element of sexism in the way conservatorships often operate, with male figures invariably taking over the financial and property affairs of female wards. The U.S. Justice Department says there are an estimated 1.3 million conservatorships in the U.S., with total assets totaling more than $50 billion. The main news again, President Biden is urging Democrats to unite and pass 2 spending bills that are critical to his domestic agenda. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is urging the public not to lose confidence in the Metropolitan Police, despite the conviction of a former officer on murder charges. And the UN Secretary-General has told the Ethiopian government the expulsion of 7 senior UN officials from the country is unacceptable. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
On May 22, 1992, beloved talk show host Johnny Carson ended his 30-year run of hosting The Tonight Show with a farewell episode that included special guests Saddam Hussein, KKK Grand Wizard Virgil Lee Griffin, and a musical performance by the Flag. On May 24, 1883, the Brooklyn Bridge opened, providing New Yorkers with a more efficient way of killing themselves and escaping their trash-ridden excrement-cake city. The monument's historic opening was marked by hundreds of people jumping 275 feet to their deaths in order to avoid waking up every morning with the smell of horse filling their nostrils.
Before the Brooklyn Bridge, there were very few ways for New Yorkers to free themselves from the cesspool in which they lived. One method was to tie cinder blocks on their legs and walk into the Hudson River. But of course, the banks of the Hudson were so brimming with garbage and raw sewage that the putrid stench would drive back even the most desperate suicide seeker.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
Welcome to Free Talk Live. The phones are open as always. If you want to join us here, the number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Coinbase admitting to a hack that happened, I think it was earlier this year or something like that. It wasn't like yesterday, but they're now copping to it. We can tell you a little bit about that on the way here. Plus, the latest out of California, the total state, the total authoritarian medical hellscape of California just got worse. They're requiring students at their schools, and apparently also private schools, to get vaccinated.
That is super interesting. You would think that would be a policy of the institution, not of the state.
I didn't think they could do that.
You wouldn't know California real well, apparently.
Clearly I don't.
They do whatever they want out there. We'll give you an update on what's going on there, but I want to start internationally here tonight because it's a big day in Venezuela. And we haven't talked about Venezuela for a little while, but every now and then we do like to check in there and see what kind of craziness is afoot, because it is pretty crazy there. Right now, more than 75% of Venezuelans are living in extreme poverty, not just normal poverty, which probably is fairly uncomfortable.
Wait, 75%?
This is according to a new study published this week as reported by Reuters. And this one is thehill.com reporting on this. The 2020 through 2021 National Survey of Living Conditions found the percentage of Venezuelans living in extreme poverty rose by nearly 10 percentage points from last year. According to the Wire Service, 67.7% last year to 76.6% this year.
Wow, that's a huge fall for, I believe they were the wealthiest country in Latin America.
At a time, time they were, a couple decades ago.
Yeah, before socialism, really, from what I understand.
Roughly 95% of Venezuelans live in poverty when only looking at income levels, according to the study run by researchers from Andres Bello Catholic University, which surveyed 14,000 households in 21 of the country's 23 states between February and April of this year. Among the factors contributing to such dramatic poverty include fuel shortages. Remember, the country of Venezuela is a fuel manufacturer. They have all of the equipment there to produce plenty of fuel, but the centralized control economy created by the government and the government-run fuel company, PDVSA, if I recall correctly, is what they're called, they've been botching it up. and they can't even provide enough fuel to their own people, let alone the rest of the world at this point. It is an absolute nightmare.
If I recall correctly, I believe they haven't maintained the equipment, and as a result, it has basically failed, and so they can't extract the oil. And what oil is extracted, to the degree that it was being extracted, has basically like destroyed the environment, because it doesn't go anywhere.
And they can't take it out of the country because their ships have not been maintained.
Right.
And so it's just...
So it just sits around?
Well, I don't even know how much of it they're pumping now. I mean, I don't have all the details on what their current oil status is, but the last I saw, they were unable to provide their own people with enough oil that they needed to use to get around. So.
Yeah, they like nationalized it, I think.
This was decades ago.
Yeah, and it's just not been maintained since then. And of course, if you don't maintain something after you nationalize it, well, it won't work eventually, and it stopped working.
But we need to give the government full control of all our resources, so that way they'll help the environment.
Yeah, because it's really great environment there with like waterways poisoned in Venezuela. You basically can't get clean water easily, and again, 95% living in poverty. According to the story here, they're having shortages on fuel. There's not enough job opportunities. COVID-19. These are the things they're citing. Of course, Venezuela was already on a downward trend big time before COVID-19, so it's not COVID-19's fault. It's the absence of opportunities, said a sociologist from the university who worked on the report. He says it's sitting in front of the door of the house doing nothing, not because you don't want to do anything, but because there's nowhere to do it. The report comes as the country is mired in political and economic crisis, which includes shortages of critical supplies like medicine, food. They've got hyperinflation, of course, which we're going to touch on coming up here in just a moment, and a lack of power, according to the BBC. Guess who runs the power company?
Government.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sounds like, it's funny. I don't know if maybe funny is not the right word, but it sounds like California.
Yeah, we were talking about their power outages last night.
Yeah, mm-hmm. It's lots of power outages, and it's not good.
But I thought the whole reason that Texas had a meltdown last year was because there wasn't enough government control during the snowstorm.
The Texas power outage where people were... What were you there for that?
No, it was right after I got here, thank God.
Oh, okay, that's right.
I looked out.
Yeah, we looked into that story as well, and that, of course, you can tie directly to the government manipulation of that particular industry and all the various different regulations.
But Ian, no, there just wasn't enough manipulation. That's why.
That's what the statists certainly want you to believe, and I'm sorry, but all of the evidence shows that centralized, controlled economies do not work. They don't understand how to allocate their resources. They don't understand how to set prices.
And it's because they don't have the correct signals.
Correct. Because to them, the signals don't matter. They can just use force. Whereas those of us who are in the marketplace, Chris, you run a company. It's called thinkpenguin.com. You're selling computer equipment.
Yep.
And if you list a product that people aren't buying, you, as the business owner, you get that signal pretty clear, right? Like, they're not moving off the shelves.
Oh, yeah.
If there's a product where it's not working real well, for those people that have bought it, they're going to complain. You're going to hear about it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And you're either going to do something about it and change your arrangement or not.
If something's not working, that's going to be a nightmare. So it's going to increase support costs, which are going to undermine whatever value I would theoretically be getting, that profit.
Right.
And
because if you have to give support for every single product that goes out the door, it's just not worth doing.
Yeah, and it's definitely one of those things where government is, well, you probably won't get any support with government, but
no.
Yeah, I mean, but imagine if you had an electric supplier and you call them up and your power's out, but they won't do anything. It's like, what do?
You leave.
Yeah,
that's
you flee.
Really
you flee is really the only option.
It's like my sister sent me this picture. I don't know if it was an official Austin City Instagram that posted this, but it was just like a meme picture thing. But it was like an informational meme thing. It said, just so you know, after October 1st, because of labor shortages, the cops won't be responding to any calls of and it had a list of things. One was most car accidents. One was prostitution, which is okay, good.
Great, yeah.
And there was other ones that said theft. The cops won't be responding to those calls.
Just because they're too busy with other things.
And I was just making the point oh, well, if you socialize protection.
have to wonder how many calls do they get about prostitution?
Almost none.
Yeah, it's really weird.
Yeah, you would think that like it probably won't have any impact on
there's
the neighbors.
There's probably some busybody neighbor looking out her window at some girl walking by and calling the cops, thinking she's turning tricks or whatever. So that probably happens because there's busybodies everywhere.
Yeah, that's true.
But the points that you guys are making are good here on the economy. When people are free to choose, when people are in the marketplace are able to act, they get those signals all the time from their customers, and they move on them. You don't have to ask for
when there's competition.
You don't have to go to Congress, Chris, with your company. Nope. You don't have to go and ask Congress for permission to change your business model if something's not working, which is what the Postal Service has to do. If the Postal Service, which they're in the news, by the way, for cutting back delivery times this week, they've announced that first-class mail is going to be slower than it has been in decades. It's going to be like 1970s.
Already been slower.
They're slowing it down even more. They're saying mail that used to be, within 3 days is not going to be within 5 days to be delivered.
It's been saying 2 to 5 days on their ETAs for I don't even know, years now, I feel like.
Well, they're officially slowing it down, is what I understand.
Interesting.
And they always have to go to Congress to ask permission. Like they've been talking about cutting down delivery from 7 days to 3 days or whatever, and they can't just do that. They have a bunch of bureaucrats they have to convince to make that change. So they're not nimble, they're not quick in any way, shape, or form. And is that really what you want for your power company? Is that really what you want for life, affirming kind of technology that, if you, like I said before, if you're on life support and the power goes out, you're probably going to die. Or something really bad's going to happen to you. There's more coming up here on what's happening in Venezuela.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it! You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correa, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. The number to join us here at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. It's Ian, Bonnie, and Chris in the studio. And want to say thanks to Robert Womack III. He is a silver amplifier, which means Robert is contributing $5 a month to the AMP program. And you can join him. Just go to amp.freetalklive.com. Although right now, credit card, debit card amps are not working at all. So we're working behind the scenes. It's slow going, dealing with merchant providers and things like that to try to, our merchant accounts or whatever.
Did that just stop working?
It stopped working like 2 weeks ago. It was only brought to my attention within the last few days.
Interesting.
Anyway, it's not working. So PayPal is working. If you want to do PayPal, you can do that still over at amp.freetalklive.com. And hopefully we'll have some announcements to make about that sometime within the next week or two. I don't have any, deadlines or anything like that. But this is the banking system for you. It's trying to navigate this nightmarish system that is really doesn't care about you or any of your what you're doing. It's just absolutely awful. So amp.freetalklive.com. We got something new coming soon. So the number here, if you want to join us, 603-283-6160. As we continue the story from thehill.com and looking at a report from Reuters on more than 75% of Venezuelans. This is up from like 66% last year. So it's now 76.6% of Venezuelans are living in extreme poverty. And 95%, according to their income levels, are living in just poverty.
95?
Yeah, in Venezuela.
Well, how is that 95 are in poverty and then 75 are extreme poverty?
So that would mean that roughly 20% of them are just in poverty, and then 75% of them are in extreme poverty. So 75% being a portion of that 95. So the majority of their population is in extreme poverty. A smaller portion is just in poverty. And then 5% is in the middle class, I guess, or I'm sure there's still like
there probably isn't a middle class, right?
It's probably more like the wealthy, and because you have to remember that
the middle class goes
the
away.
way socialism works effectively is you end up with a elite who get all sorts of government freebies and
that's a good point.
And they end up with mansions and all sorts of crazy stuff, and it's like everybody else ends up in extreme poverty, but there's still a upper class and then basically no middle class.
Yeah, like the government agency heads, for instance, are going to be in that upper class.
Right.
Whatever few business owners have been allowed to remain or have, for whatever reason, haven't fled the country.
Well,
that are government connected.
Probably because they're government connected and they're only ones allowed to operate.
Correct. So some argue that the mismanagement of the country's economy is to blame for the conditions, according to Reuters. And I would agree with that. Of course, there is no management of the economy that is necessary for success. In fact, any management is mismanagement, because anytime you've got a central government telling people what to do, telling businesses what they have to do, what prices they have to offer things at, because they do that in Venezuela, they will mandate prices.
intervening and interrupting the natural flow of things.
Which is all governments do. That's essentially all they do. They put in roadblocks in the way of this sort of natural stream that is the marketplace, that finds its level. It goes on its own. The invisible hand of the market. The government tries to invade and stop that from happening. And in Venezuela, they have done a darn good job of destroying the market. And that's not to say that there aren't still people out there trying to do their best and trying to make things work, but it is ugly. The administration of Nicolas Maduro has blamed the U.S. government's sanctions. Of course. For their reason behind the country's predicament, which is unfortunate that the U.S. federal government does give them that excuse. It would be much better for the U.S. government to just say, hey, we don't care. If you want to do business with Venezuela, because right now, I don't think you can legally sell products to Venezuela. Can you, Chris?
That's a good question. I don't know. Is Venezuela? I don't think Venezuela is on the. I don't think there's an actual blockade on all of Venezuela, right? Isn't it just certain businesses and individuals?
That is a good question. I thought there was a total economic.
A better question is, would I be able to get product to Venezuela? And that's probably a big fat either no or it's like $300 for something that might cost $70 to Europe. Shipment-wise, or maybe even less.
And so you don't have anyone trying to order from Venezuela?
No, they couldn't afford it even if they wanted to.
The U.S. has continued to give financial assistance to the country, including a recent contribution of $336 million in humanitarian and economic assistance. What a strange mixed signal. They're giving them hundreds of millions of dollars, which of course goes to the government. But at the same time, they're saying there's economic sanctions on Venezuela. How can you have both policies simultaneously? That just doesn't make any sense at all.
Because people will vote for that.
People will vote for the idea of helping Venezuela, you mean?
Yeah, even if it all goes to the government.
Yeah, because that's not helping the people. Obviously, there's 95% of the people are in poverty.
Doing business freely with them would.
That's true, and that would be ending economic sanctions against that country, because then you could just, they could just call you up and order a thing, or you could call them and, buy something that they're offering. But whether you can or you can't, that's a good question. What the details are on the sanctions. They definitely are sanctioning government agents. That much is true. Government agencies can't have bank accounts in, the United States. The people that work for them, for instance, can't either.
There's probably like seizures of cash for Venezuelan nationals that are, high-level players in the government, as far as like U.S. bank accounts that they might own, or properties, or things of that nature.
And so having those economic sanctions gives the Venezuelan government, and by the way, the North Korean government uses the same excuse. Oh, the reason why we're starving is because...
Cuba too.
Yep, exactly. The reason we're starving over here in North Korea is because of economic sanctions from the U.S. federal government.
Yeah, the crazy thing is, it's like, there's probably, I don't want to say there's some truth to it, but it's certainly probably, it's probably a small portion of there's some truth to it, but it's not to the degree that their own policies are causing their problem, No,
of course not. If whether or not you can trade with the United States is not going to make or break you. You still have the rest of the planet that you can trade with. There are plenty of other places where you could get food and products and services and whatever. You don't need to have the United States. It'd be nice to have it, but you don't need to have it. And the thing is, it just gives them the excuse to blame the U.S. And if those sanctions weren't there, they wouldn't have that one. What else would they say? Who would they put the blame on in that particular case? Because they won't accept the blame themselves. Maduro isn't going to say, oh, shoot, these are all my economic policies and my party's policies, so it's all of our fault. Of course, they're not going to do that, but at least they wouldn't be able to blame the U.S. And by the way, the State Department says they've given more than $1.9 billion in financial assistance to Venezuela since 2017. And that's proof, in case you needed it, that giving people a bunch of money doesn't help their financial circumstances. Because if they don't have the financial intelligence to save the money or do something smart with it, like, invest the money, then it's not going to help them.
Sounds to me like it just went to the government, though.
Of course it did.
These policies tend just to hurt the little guy anyway, not the people they are actually after anyway.
Right. It bought Maduro his next set of meals because he's, chubby and well-fed. whereas the rest of his country, the rest of his people are hungry. Well, they've got their own solutions over in Venezuela. They are going to redenominate the currency and knock 6 zeros off. We'll tell you what that means coming up here in moments on Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odysee, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off. Now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odysee started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odysee. You can watch live or anytime on our Odysee channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odysee today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. President Biden is pledging to get key planks of his domestic agenda passed by Congress, despite ongoing disagreements among members of his own party. He visited Capitol Hill today, flanked by his top strategists, and after meeting Democrat leaders in the House and Senate, plus members of the Democratic caucus, he told reporters he is determined that his spending bills will pass and will reach his desk to be signed into law.
I'm telling you, we're going to get this done. It doesn't matter when. It doesn't matter whether it's in 6 minutes, 6 days, or 6 weeks. We're going to get it done.
It is still unclear when those key bills will be put to a vote. Millions of households in Britain are facing higher gas and electric bills as new energy price caps take effect. From FSN's London bureau, Benji Hire reports.
About 15 million households in England, Wales and Scotland will be affected by these changes, which are being brought in amid a crisis in the industry, with 9 firms folding in recent weeks as a result of surging wholesale gas prices. This 12% increase to the cap that customers can pay, set by regulator Ofgem, also comes at a time of the year when people in the UK are about to start using more heating and electricity during colder, darker winter days.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is urging the public not to lose confidence in the Metropolitan Police, despite the conviction of a former officer on rape, kidnapping and murder charges. As anger grows in the UK over the force's failure to investigate the officer early, the Prime Minister spoke to reporters at number 10 Downing Street.
Should we believe in the police? Should we trust in the police? Yes, I do. Are there things we need to do? Yes, there are. Across a huge range of issues, from the way we handle these complaints to the way we speed up the whole criminal justice process. But should we have confidence in the police? Should we believe in policing? Absolutely.
The United Nations Secretary-General has told the Ethiopian government that the expulsion of 7 senior UN officials from the country is unacceptable. Antonio Guterres told Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed the officials are still in the country and that a looming famine there requires an international response. A new experimental COVID-19 drug has been shown in US trials to reduce hospitalizations by up to 50%. From FSN's Washington bureau, Caroline Malone reports.
Pharmaceutical company Merck said on Friday that molnupiravir reduces deaths and hospitalizations by half in people recently infected with the coronavirus. Vaccines remain the most effective way of protecting people against COVID-19, but drugs are needed to treat the many unvaccinated people around the world. At the moment, all therapies require an injection or IV, so a pill taken at home would be a breakthrough.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Do you appreciate what we do? Help us advertise, market, and promote for just $5 a month at amp.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You can join us here, the number, if you want, 603-283-6160, especially if you've been to Venezuela in recent years, especially in the last year or so, because it just keeps getting worse. It's just problem on top of government-created problem, and there's just no hope for the people there. I mean, until they can throw this government off somehow, and I don't agree with violence, but I understand that's what tends to happen in these situations. People get pushed to a breaking point. And it's amazing that the Venezuelan people have not hit that point. There were some pretty big protests a few years ago that were anti-Maduro, but they didn't get him out of office. He's still sitting pretty, sitting fat and tubby. He's eating great, while 75% of the people are considered in extreme poverty.
Yeah, it's interesting. I knew when I was growing up, I knew a girl who and her family who fled Venezuela back then. And this would have been in the 90s or early 2000s, probably early 2000s. And it was bad then. It was going in the bad direction. And then
they saw it coming. Good for them.
Yeah, a decade ago, I know somebody who went to Venezuela and they got robbed. And this was like in a good part of Venezuela. And so it's definitely bad. And that was like a university and everything too that he was at. So it was like
somebody steal his phone. That's a pretty
it was
popular
it was
thing.
a laptop.
Yeah,
it was a laptop.
Here's how they're going to solve their problems. They've got a plan in Venezuela. All this poverty, they know what to do. They're going to do exactly what they did 3 years ago. In August of 2018, I believe is when it was, that in Venezuela they knocked 5 zeros off of the currency. And now they're going to knock 6 off of the currency.
I'm a little confused. Are people even using the Venezuelan currency still?
Well, the good news, if there is any good news, is that in Venezuela they are allowed to use dollars sort of unofficially.
Right.
It's being tolerated by the government there. They're not arresting people for doing it or anything like that. So stores have started to convert their product costs, their pricing, to dollars.
Why don't they just mint $1 trillion Bolivar coin?
That's like the same level of stupid that we're talking about here. Because you're referencing the proposals that have been made here in the United States to pay down the debt and the debt ceiling. That's a current issue here in the U.S. We talked about that earlier this week. And this is sort of a similar kind of concept where they're just doing crazy money manipulation. And, okay, imagine this. I mean, it's hard for Americans to imagine this, right? Because the highest increment of the dollar that we have is a $100 bill. Now, in the past, there were $500 and $1,000 bills in the United States. They got rid of those due to quote-unquote money laundering and drug dealing or whatever, if I recall correctly. That was their excuse for getting rid of those bills. So in the U.S., we haven't had hyperinflation yet as a problem. We're dealing with inflation. They are inflating the money supply, and they've constantly been doing that. But in Venezuela, it has gotten so bad that right before they did this currency redenomination, $1 US was worth roughly 4 million Bolivar. And so they're knocking off 6 zeros starting today. October 1st, if you have a $1 million Bolivar note, you can go to the bank and exchange that for a single. Just try to imagine that in the United States, right? That's pretty significant. What they're talking about.
I thought the inflation here in the United States with the dollar was bad.
Yeah,
I can't even imagine hyperinflation.
No, I mean, and they are living in that reality there. I remember when
they just got there a little bit sooner than us, I think.
Yeah, and they're stuck in it.
Yeah.
Because it just keeps getting worse and worse, and the central bank, this is all they have. Like, okay, well, the numbers have gotten too big. Let's just arbitrarily chop off 6 zeros off the back end of this. Venezuela unveils new banknotes today to once again slash zeros off its currency. This coming from France24.com. Battered by runaway inflation that has compounded the country's economic collapse and left many struggling to put food on the table, the national economy has shrunk by 80%. Imagine around you 80% of the stores closing. Like, we're seeing some pretty bad, like for the United States, what we're in right now, it seems pretty bad, right? Like, you can go downtown where we live, which New Hampshire has one of the lowest unemployment rates of the entire country right now, and yet every place is hiring. And a lot of places aren't even open all week. Places that previously had been open 6 days a week are now open 3.
Yep.
One of the popular restaurants that we like to go to, there's a Jamaican place here in town. They're closed 3 out of 4 days of the week. They've raised their prices. There's been a hiring sign out there for months and months. I don't remember the last time they didn't have hiring sign out. Every business you go to, we were at a taco place just yesterday, Bonnie, and guess what? They had a hiring sign up. I mean, it's every single place I go to. There's hiring signs up. There's not enough people to fill the jobs that are available, and places can't open for the hours that they need to be open. There used to be a place called the Red Arrow Diner, 24-hour-a-day diner. You could go there at 4 in the morning, order whatever you want.
That was in Keene?
No, it was never in Keene.
Oh.
There's several of them in New Hampshire. All of them are now no longer 24 hours.
That's so lame.
And when I asked the owner, who I happen to know, why, he said he couldn't find the people.
That's one thing I have been thinking is missing from like the restaurant selection here. I said to Ian recently, like, you guys don't.
24-hour?
Well, not just that. I said recently, like, you guys don't have an IHOP, and the thing I like about IHOP is going there at like midnight.
Yeah, it is nice to have that, and it is a surprise that in a college town there's not even one. You would think there's enough people in Keene to survive, to sustain one 24-hour, but certainly not now.
Yeah.
You can't find anybody to work, even if you could.
Yeah.
Even if you had the money to invest and open up a Red Arrow here or something like that, you just be throwing money down a hole. You can't find people.
Yeah, it's interesting. Keene actually did have a number of 24-hour places than I would think in a town this size.
True. Previously, but the grocery store that was 24 hours is no longer.
Yeah,
It
there
was till COVID.
Yeah, there was like a McDonald's and a grocery store, and
I think is the McDonald's still 24?
I think they're Walgreens. I think was 24.
They were closed for a whole Sunday recently.
That's right, because they didn't have any staff, right?
Yeah.
I've never seen a McDonald's close for a whole
ever.
day.
Yeah.
Crazy. So, like, we look at this and we say, okay, things are bad. But now imagine 80% of those businesses just closing entirely or going down to like 1 or 2 days a week, limited hours. You can come in at noon and they close at 3 or something, right? Like the economy's down 80%.
I mean, when
Venezuela.
you've got nothing on the shelf anyway, it doesn't necessarily make any sense to be open.
So this is 80% since 2013, and the oil price crashed and output dwindled during decades of underinvestment, U.S. sanctions, and mismanagement by successive socialist governments. The latest devaluation is the third devaluation of their currency in 13 years. So, and I think they go over it here. We'll get into it here in just a moment. We'll give you the total number of zeros that have been slashed off the back end of the Bolivar in the last 13 years. And gives Venezuela the dubious distinction of becoming the South American country to have removed the most zeros from its currency. 7 1 million Bolivar notes, which is the highest denomination and hard to come by, were needed to pay in cash for one loaf of bread in the once rich oil-producing nation. 7 million Bolivar for one loaf of bread. Consumers have struggled to make payment for even the most basic goods or services, and public sector workers have found themselves receiving salaries paid in millions of bolivars that are effectively worth nothing.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't even think people understand fully what it means for hyperinflation. By the time you actually get your paycheck,
it's worth less.
It's worthless. Yeah. It's. I mean, you basically don't have any. It's not worth anything. It's like in the beginning of the week, it was worth something. Yeah. Whatever you were getting paid, but by the end of the week, it wasn't worth anything.
Teacher Mareles Guerrero, age 43, told the AFP, quote, "We earn fortnightly less than $3.
What is fortnightly?
I believe a fortnight is 2 weeks, if I recall correctly. You'll have to double check me on that. Yeah, $3. Less than $3 every 2 weeks. There's more, though. We'll tell you about it coming up here. And the history, just the ridiculous history of the Venezuelan government just continuing to lop zeros off the back end of their currency. And they always have to rename it, too, right? So it's still the Bolivar, but it was Bolivar Fuerte, then the Bolivar Soberano. What's the new one called? We'll tell you about that coming up here in moments. You can join us as well. 603-283-6160 here on Free Talk Live. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out for the first time in 2021. Fork Fest takes place the week after Pork Fest, but Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. There's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. Forkfest.party.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
This is novelist Tom Robbins. When my mother was diagnosed with glaucoma, her conservative Virginia physician told her there was only one treatment that might ease her pain and save her eyesight. That treatment was medical marijuana, which he could not prescribe. I offered to get her some and teach her how to use it effectively, but my father objected because marijuana was against the law. So my mother, who loved to read and walk in nature, was condemned to grow cruelly, unnecessarily blind. Tragedies like this happen all the time, but they don't have to keep happening. To learn more about medical marijuana, call the Marijuana Policy Project at 1-877-JOIN-MPP or visit them on the web at mpp.org.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and of course you can bring up what you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Joining you tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Chris. Also, want to make sure you know about Intercoin. Intercoin can help you if you got a business or an organization. You can launch your own currency or raise money using your own token. And Intercoin.org has now launched worldwide. If there's a token you want to launch or an app you want to build for your community, go to Intercoin.org and you can enter your email there and the team will get in touch and learn about your needs. While you're there, if you want, you can get some Intercoin investor tokens for yourself. Head over to intercoin.org. We're talking about the Venezuelan government knocking 6 zeros off of their currency. So try to imagine, if you had 10,000 US dollars and the US government did the exact same thing, they would then exchange your you would then have to exchange your $10,000 for 1 cent. That's the equivalent, because knocking 6 zeros off. That's what they're doing in Venezuela. 1 million Bolivar is now worth 1 Bolivar. Yikes. Venezuela. We'll tell you more about that coming up here as we go to your phone calls and thoughts. We got Bob listening on DLive on dlive.lrn.fm. Go ahead, Bob. Do we have Bob? Bob going once? Bob, DLive listener, going twice? That's weird. He was there earlier. We'll give him another chance a little bit later, see if he can. Maybe he's got a bad cell phone connection or something like that. Again, the number here is 603-283-6160. So back to the story here from France 24. They're just kind of talking generally about the economic situation there where, according to one teacher, she's making less than $3 per fortnight. And I believe that is, if I recall correctly, 14 days, right? Yeah, 2 weeks. British term for 2 weeks. So less than $6 a month to be a teacher in Venezuela.
I mean, how do you eat on that? Like, I'm just trying to think, like,
lose weight because you barely can eat. Like, it's a different economy, right? So, maybe that buys...
But that's still not going to buy you a whole lot of food. I mean, I'm trying to think, like, how much rice can you buy, and can you live off of that amount of rice?
If you can even find it.
That's right. Like,
it's a desperate situation over there. Rent for an apartment in a modest suburb of the capital costs about $150, while a basket of basic groceries for a family of 5 costs about $220. Most payments in Bolivar are done by debit card and bank transfer, but 70% of transactions are now conducted in U.S. dollars in the country. According to private sector estimates, and prices on many shop shelves are displayed in the U.S. currency in order to keep things simpler. Because otherwise you have to constantly raise the price. If you're pricing in Bolivar, then like every hour you're probably out there crossing out the old price.
Yeah.
And then a new price.
It's what's funny is I have a little bit of experience with this, having to raise prices, and it's a pain. It's a real pain.
You've got a big inventory too. Yeah. The more stuff you got, the more of a pain it is.
I don't even have that many. I have maybe 100 products or so in my company's catalog, and just going through and changing all those prices, it
takes time.
It's a pain. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to work at Walmart, and one of my jobs was like I had a little machine with a sticker and print out the new price and put it into the thing. I never really thought about it. That was inflation.
Yeah.
It is. Well, I mean, obviously there's like sales and things like that happen, but...
Well, yeah, if it was something on sale and I was changing like a whole end cap for, this is a sale price, but it wasn't normally that.
So here's the history of the Bolivar, a short one, because they mentioned earlier that it has redenominated 3 times in 13 years. The first time was in 2008 when they knocked 3 zeros off their currency. So imagine $1,000 going to 1. And that was under Hugo Chavez, who died, and then Nicolas Maduro took over, and then they eliminated 5 zeros off of their currency in 2018. Now, we weren't following Venezuela closely in 2008. There wasn't much that crossed our desks about it, but we were watching very carefully the news about Venezuela in 2018 when this happened.
I'm just thinking, like, didn't they have a problem with paying the money printers?
They did. I mean, because they don't have their own money printers.
Nobody's
going to contract it out.
Nobody's going to accept their currency for the
of course not
printing of the currency because they don't print their own currency.
Right. So they have to pay in like euro or something like that.
Right. So the question is, where did they get the money for that?
Well, at one point they didn't have it.
Right.
Because the money printer said, we're not going to print anymore for you unless you can pay your bill.
Maybe it was the dollars the United States sent them?
Maybe. That's a good point. Yeah, the U.S. sent $1.9 billion to give Venezuela aid. Maybe they used that to pay off their money printer. Because somebody's printing their money right now. Maybe they changed it. Maybe they went to a different printer. Because I'm sure there's more than one of them out there.
It's interesting. So I've actually seen a driver's license for Venezuela, and it's literally just printed off with a laser printer. Like, that's how it is. So I'm wondering if the currency's got to have some more protection than that. I would think,
you can see it. It's actually, we've got a 500 Bolivar. That's the old Bolivar Fuerte note there on the wall.
Are there
if you want to take a close look.
Are there security measures in that?
I think so. I mean, feel free to grab it and take a look. Give it an examination.
It's a strong Bolivar.
Yeah, that's what Fuerte stands for in Spanish, which they then changed. So originally it was the Bolivar. Then they knocked 3 zeros off. It became the strong Bolivar, which, of course, is the opposite from the truth, right?
It got weaker.
Yeah. If you're knocking off zeros off of your currency, it is by definition not as strong as it once was. And then in 2018, they redenominated, knocked 5 zeros off, and they changed the name from the Bolivar Fuerte to the Bolivar Soberano, which stands for Sovereign Bolivar, another laughable name. And you're now holding up the 2 Bolivar note from, they got some dolphins on there. It's kind of nice.
It looks like there is some amount of security features.
Some micro printing on there.
Yeah, there's like these shiny squares here.
Yep, shiny.
I don't know, it's a
foil.
whole lot, but there is a little bit.
Yeah, and they're different size notes, I think, if I recall correctly. They're color like you would expect. They're not the most horribly ugly money, on the planet, but they're just not worth anything.
Yeah, I'd rather have a pretty little picture of a bird than a picture of a stupid building.
A building, yeah, like in the U.S. Yours is the 500 Bolivar note. And again, they knocked 5 zeros off of these notes in 2018. And at the time, we were watching it. There's a really excellent website, and I always love to mention this site, dollartoday.com. Go there today, and you will see what the current black market rate, because there's always an official rate from the government of Venezuela, and I have not yet heard what their official exchange rate is going to be. Like if you walk into a bank and you give them $1, what amount of, you're insane to do that, but if you were to walk into a bank and give them $1 in Venezuela, there's an official amount of Bolivar that they will hand to you. And then there's the real amount of Bolivar that $1 is worth, and that you can only get on the black market in Venezuela. And so what Dollar Today does is they have people in Caracas who are going to these black markets. There may be one in Peru, but it's the capital of Venezuela. It's a big city in Venezuela. So they've got people in the black market exchanges in Venezuela, and they call in or email or whatever, and they say, all right, well, here's what a dollar is worth today in Venezuelan Bolivar. So today is the first day of the new Bolivar. So if you go to dollartoday.com, it shows that $1 will get you 5 Bolivar.
I'm curious what it's, what's the loss in value on its first day? Because
go tomorrow and you'll find out.
Right. Because, and the reason I wonder is because I believe the last time they did this, it immediately dropped in value from the very moment they started handing them out.
Yep. And that was what I was going to mention was, like I said, we were watching when it happened last time.
Yeah.
And I might not have gone on the same day, but the next day or something like that.
Yep.
And it was 75 to 1.
Did you go today?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. 5.05 to 1. But yesterday it was 4 million to 1. So again, they knocked off 6 zeros. And so that's the thing. What's it going to be at the end of a week? What's it going to be at the end of the first month? You damn well better believe it's going to start skyrocketing as soon as, they take the wheels off this thing. So the number here is 603-283-6160. Back to the story here. So with Friday's change, 1 million Bolivars overnight becomes 1. Still the equivalent of about 25 U.S. cents. And now it's 20 cents. So at the time they did it, it was 25 cents, and now it's 20 cents. In Venezuela's border regions, besides the dollar, it's also common to pay for goods in Colombian pesos or Brazilian reais, and even grams of gold. In the rest of the country, cash is used almost exclusively for purchasing public transport tickets, but even this presents a headache as notes are scarce and can only be obtained by standing in long lines at the bank. "I'll buy your dollar!" Children with thick wads of Bolivar bills yell at buses that, along with bus stops, have become informal currency exchange offices. Quote, "We pay $1 for 4 million Bolivars. The fare costs $2 million, said William Hernandez, a 56-year-old bus driver. Government will issue new banknotes in denominations of 5, 10, 20, 50, and 100 Bolivars, as well as the 1 Bolivar coin after Friday's change. So how long will it be before they issue the 10,000 Bolivar note, the 50,000 Bolivar note, and the 100,000? The end of the year? Next year? Next summer? More coming up.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next, after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. President Biden is pledging to get key planks of his domestic agenda passed by Congress, despite ongoing disagreements among members of his own party. He visited Capitol Hill today, flanked by his top strategists, and after meeting Democrat leaders in the House and Senate, plus members of the Democratic caucus, he told reporters he is determined that his spending bills will pass and will reach his desk to be signed into law.
I'm telling you, we're going to get this done. It doesn't matter when. It doesn't matter whether it's in 6 minutes, 6 days, or 6 weeks. We're going to get it done.
It is still unclear when those key bills will be put to a vote. Millions of households in Britain are facing higher gas and electric bills as new energy price caps take effect. From FSN's London bureau, Benji Hire reports.
About 15 million households in England, Wales and Scotland will be affected by these changes, which are being brought in amid a crisis in the industry, with 9 firms folding in recent weeks as a result of surging wholesale gas prices. This 12% increase to the cap that customers can pay, set by regulator Ofgem, also comes at a time of the year when people in the UK are about to start using more heating and electricity during colder, darker winter days.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is urging the public not to lose confidence in the Metropolitan Police, despite the conviction of a former officer on rape, kidnapping and murder charges. As anger grows in the UK over the force's failure to investigate the officer earlier, the Prime Minister spoke to reporters at number 10 Downing Street.
Should we believe in the police? Should we trust in the police? Yes, I do. Are there things we need to do? Yes, there are. Across a huge range of issues, from the way we handle these complaints to the way we speed up the whole criminal justice process. But should we have confidence in the police? Should we believe in policing? Absolutely.
The United Nations Secretary General has told the Ethiopian government that the expulsion of 7 senior UN officials from the country is unacceptable. Antonio Guterres told Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed the officials are still in the country and that a looming famine there requires an international response. A new experimental COVID-19 drug has been shown in US trials to reduce hospitalizations by up to 50%. From FSN's Washington bureau, Caroline Malone reports.
Pharmaceutical company Merck said on Friday that molnupiravir reduces deaths and hospitalizations by half in people recently infected with the coronavirus. Vaccines remain the most effective way of protecting people against COVID-19, but drugs are needed to treat the many unvaccinated people around the world. At the moment, all therapies require an injection or IV, so a pill taken at home would be a breakthrough.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, ending the week with a look in more detail at the issue of conservatorships, after a judge in California removed Britney Spears' father from playing that role in her life. But she's by no means the only person out there who has been struggling legally to secure control of her own affairs. In the singer's case, the whole issue came about because of her challenges with mental health and addiction. But Dr. Anne Olivarius, chair and senior partner of McAllister Olivarius, who works with victims of abuse, says it's high time for US law to change and do away with the whole concept of conservatorships.
This has been a human rights violation of a high dimension in the United States. It's hugely embarrassing that this should have been allowed. Now, nobody knows whether Brittany is in good mental health or not. Bless her. Let's hope that she can carry it off and she can actually be an excellent example for the abolition of conservatorships for very many people, because it's a terrible legal entity, conservatorships, when they're not fairly applied.
She argues there's an element of sexism in the way conservatorships often operate, with male figures invariably taking over the financial and property affairs of female wards. The US Justice Department says there are an estimated 1.3 million conservatorships in the US, with total assets totaling more than $50 billion. The main news again, President Biden is urging Democrats to unite and pass 2 spending bills that are critical to his domestic agenda. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is urging the public not to lose confidence in the Metropolitan Police, despite the conviction of a former officer on murder charges. And the UN Secretary-General has told the Ethiopian government the expulsion of 7 senior UN officials from the country is unacceptable. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
Take the Field's mission is to inform baseball players that physical activity is nothing to be scared of, that a little bit of running can be fun.
Now, Rebecca, this obesity problem is nothing new.
Well, right. There is a culture of obesity in baseball that has been around for years. I mean, coaches even sub in healthy pinch runners instead of encouraging their overweight players to hustle, depriving them of the only cardiovascular exercise they might have a chance to get.
And a lot of these athletes have been playing baseball since they were kids.
Well, right. So they might have never learned any healthy habits.
Baseball is fine in moderation, but many of these men spend over 200 days a year playing it, and that adds up.
The program encourages players once an hour to take a 15-minute break from baseball to do something active, like go up and down some stairs, go for a walk, or play some basketball.
All right, well, thanks, Rebecca. If you're a baseball coach and you're worried about your players' health, go to takethefield.gov for a list of healthy activities and nutritious snacks. Coming up next, does America brains get worse hearing words correct?
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
Hey, it's Free Talk Live. We're kicking off the second hour of the program. As always, you can bring up what you want. We're talking about a currency redenomination. No, they're not trying that in the United States quite yet. And maybe they never will. But they're doing it in Venezuela for the 3rd time in less than 15 years. In fact, it's the 2nd time that they've redenominated, which means chopping zeros off the end of the currency. It's the 2nd time in 3 years. The last time they did it was 2018.
Stealing value from their people.
Well, they've been stealing value. I mean, this is just a way to make it look like they're doing something to change a thing, but the reality, of course, is anybody that knows even a little bit about economics and inflation knows that this is just a shell game that they're playing with people. And I would hope that the Venezuelan people by now realize this, what the scam is. And certainly a lot of them do, because 70% of them are using dollars now instead of the Venezuelan Bolivar.
I don't know. I don't necessarily know if that actually means that they understand what's going on, just because they're unable to effectively use their own currency.
Well, I think that you understand if you're facing inflation. You understand that prices of things are going up on the shelf. And you understand that if you use the dollar, which we don't like the dollar here either, but it's certainly more stable by comparison to the Venezuelan. I mean, anything is more stable by comparison to the Venezuelan Bolivar.
I feel like you're giving people too much credit.
Yeah,
I mean,
look at the Americans. They don't realize there's inflation going on.
Yeah, but the Americans aren't. Well, hold on. I mean, it's more subtle here.
Yeah.
Like, some Americans are realizing it, but if your prices were doubling, every week at the gas pump or at the grocery store.
You can talk to people about how a slice of pizza in the 90s cost $1 and today it's $5, right? And they still won't understand like why or how that comes to be.
Yeah.
Like they won't even attribute that to government. Like it's and you try to explain
you can't explain it to them,
and they still don't get it. Yeah, like I don't know. I feel like you're giving people too much credit. Like I mean, they'll see it sort of, but like they won't really understand it.
Most of my life, like growing up, I didn't really understand it until I started listening to Tom Woods. I was just like, oh, that's just how it is. Back in the 1800s, you could buy things for cents for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, I feel like people don't really understand economics.
But it's not that hard to explain
or money printing.
It's not that hard to explain it to people.
Yeah,
it's simple.
but you're talking to people who are generally smarter than average.
And not just that, people get explained economics incorrectly in the schools.
Sure.
They don't get it explained at all in high school or anything below that. And then in college, they get it explained to them incorrectly on purpose.
That's right. And they say in government school that inflation is an increase in prices. And they're lying. It is not. That's a symptom of inflation. But it's not a complicated thing to understand. I never got a degree in economics. I don't claim to be an economist. But I do understand that when you print more money out, it brings the prices up.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, actual economics that makes sense, like Austrian economics, that like Tom Woods and Bob Murphy explained to me, are easy to understand. People are just not exposed to the explanations.
Yeah. Well, and look, the reality is if prices are doubling, again, it's one thing to see prices go up 5% or 10% at the grocery store. Okay, that's annoying. It definitely is going to hurt the poor more than it's going to hurt the wealthy. That's what we're experiencing here in the United States right now. But if your prices are going up 50% every week, you're going to pay a little bit more attention. Maybe you're going to be a little more interested in finding out why this is. Maybe you're going to ask a question of your coworkers or your
let me ask you this.
Family members.
If people understand it, why do they keep voting for socialism? Why do they keep voting for the same guys?
They don't know what to do. How are you going to vote any other way? They're all socialists.
I mean, vote for anybody else. I don't know, but people seem to keep doing the same thing. Like, if
sure,
people
they're giving the same options.
If people were...
But Ian, people are like begging for a free school.
They're giving people two options and they're still voting for the same option. It's not like they're voting in a different person into power. I mean, these people they don't understand what's going on. They don't understand how this stuff works.
Let me go to your phone calls and thoughts here. Jesse is on the line in Virginia. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead, Jesse.
Hey, what's up, guys?
What's on your mind? Go ahead.
Hey, so I've been following you guys for a while now, probably about like 4 years.
Thanks.
You guys do a great job of, explaining how the way the world really works is and everything like that. And I've just been kind of looking to move up to New Hampshire at some point.
Wow, cool.
I thought, after in a couple of years, like maybe around closer to when I'm 30 years old, after I'm a little bit more established, but it looks like I might not get that chance based on the way things are going in, my state, and tyranny, basically just ratcheting down just the world over. So,
you're feeling like your sense of urgency has increased faster than you expected?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Honestly, don't wait. Move, because once you establish yourself someplace, it's really
harder to cut the strings.
Yeah, it's harder to cut the strings. I just don't even.
Yeah, I've
accept whatever losses you have to and move.
I like to say, it's good to have a little bit of savings, before moving.
Yes, obviously, have some savings, but don't establish yourself.
Yeah.
You know,
don't buy a house down there.
Yeah, don't buy a house. Don't do anything like that, because then you're gonna get stuck there. Don't go looking for women. Move and then look for women.
Right.
Unless you have somebody and then move with them. But yeah.
Right. Exactly.
So
I was thinking about saving up for a house or whatever, not knowing exactly what I want to do. And then I started listening to your, radio show, and then I've known for a while that, the government they're all criminals and everything. Right. We lose more freedom, daily and everything. So, but I didn't know just how bad, it's gotten until, recently, just to give you like a little bit of backstory,
Sure.
like I've been kind of working at this job I've been working at for 5 years. I've been a technician at this Toyota dealership, worked my way through the ranks, and just decided that wrenching on cars wasn't for me. So started sales a few months ago, and even in this fucked up economy, working.
Oh man, I'm sorry. I gotta let you go. I apologize about that. Good call and everything, but can't let you say that. wasn't prepared for it, but
I don't even think he intended to say it.
I don't think he did either.
Yeah.
Hopefully I got it in time there. Let's go to Bob. He's on. Can't really say the F word on the air, but Bob is on the air. Hopefully, are you there, Bob? I know we've had some trouble with your phone line.
Yeah. Hey guys.
Hey.
Sorry about the phone trouble there.
No worries. What's on your mind tonight?
You guys are talking about inflation. It's kind of an interesting. I do want to talk about that, but that last caller, before he said the naughty word, he said things are messed up, and you were saying to move. Do you think that's like an option for us, like in the long run? Like, do you guys think that, like, okay, if you're like us, we should all band together and go somewhere and have a state where we are all together, all like-minded and all free, and that the type of that basically your state depends on the type of people you have in it?
I mean, doesn't that make sense?
I mean, I want to say let's not get ahead of ourselves because we're not free here in New Hampshire, but we're working in that direction, right? Yeah. And we are getting this somewhere, so.
So would you subscribe to the idea then that, like, who makes up your society, like the type of people matters?
Yeah, absolutely it does. In fact, if you want to continue the discussion, I definitely want to have it, so stand by. We'll get back into that here if Bob wants to stay with us. The number is 603-283-6160. I think it's really important to have a deliberate group of people come together and have similar belief systems. That makes total sense.
Yeah, in your closest range, at least. I mean, like, I just don't care about what the rest of, quote-unquote, the United States is doing, because why should it affect me what people are doing in Arizona?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, and this kind of ties into something you were saying, Chris, about people being clueless. And I think you're generally right. People are too absorbed in their own lives and what's going on with their own personal drama, or at work, or whatever their thing is that they do and they're interested in. They're not paying attention to the things that go on around them, or things that we would consider to be important, and they're never going to. They're never going to care as much, about it like people like us. So it makes sense if people that actually believe in freedom come to the same geographic area, like Jesse was planning on doing, and I hope we'll see him here soon.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
More coming up. Free Talk Live.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. UCI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Bain Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless free market non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here,
I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world. So I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. And I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
Should you be able to earn an honest living free from senseless government interference? The Institute for Justice thinks so. That's why we've spent years defending hard-working men and women from pointless government regulations. Nationwide, IJ has created opportunity by reducing government power. But there is still more work to be done. Visit our website today at ij.org. Let IJ take care of the government so you can take care of your business.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and you can bring up what you want here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. With you tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Chris.
We've been talking about money matters, specifically with regard to crazy hyperinflation happening in Venezuela. Not only are 75% of the population there in extreme poverty, according to a recent survey, but also they're now knocking 6 zeros off of the currency, redenominating the 1 million Bolivar note to 1 Bolivar. And already the Bolivar, the new Bolivar, which they're calling the digital Bolivar now. And we'll tell you more about that here in a moment because it's kind of an interesting twist to this just mess of a situation down there. But they're redenominating that, and we'll get further into that. But get your digital tickets now for Liberty in Our Lifetime. It's an event hosted by the Free Private Cities Foundation. And physical tickets are sold out for this event. It's happening in Europe, but you can still get virtual tickets at lifetimeliberty.com. They're exploring projects happening right now around the world that are working to achieve a lofty goal of securing freedom in our lifetime. Speakers from Crypto Valley, Prospera, the Seasteading Institute, and more will be speaking at this October 16th event. So we're just over 2 weeks away from that right now. You can get your digital tickets over at lifetimeliberty.com and see what people are doing all around the world to create voluntary societies with a live and let live attitude at lifetimeliberty.com. We're going to go back to Bob on the line in New York. Bob, you'd called in about these kind of migratory movements that we're seeing spring up. You've got people on the left moving to California. You've got people on the right moving to places like Texas and Florida. And, of course, libertarian-minded folks, freedom-minded people moving to New Hampshire. And go ahead with your thoughts.
It's an interesting topic about, like, you know, if you want a society of the freedom-loving type, that you need to have certain type of people there and not other type of people there who are against what you believe. Do you not see this as kind of a contradiction within libertarianism that, like, you know, you say you're freedom-loving, you say you're whatever, but fundamentally society is shaped by who you have there, and so if you have certain types of people there that are against what you think, you should be expelling them and bringing in people who are more like what you want.
I don't think anybody ever say anything about expelling people, but
well, he's suggesting that. So he's saying that if you want a certain society, you have to control who comes in.
Well, I disagree with that, and I think that what would happen if enough free staters moved to New Hampshire and we're really getting things done, people would voluntarily move because they don't want to live with their lives, you know, They don't like the freedom. They don't like the free staters.
Yeah, they want to be in a controlling place, and that we've already seen that happen. Actually, Ponte, we've seen people.
We've already got this situation, right? Like,
yeah.
So
nobody would have to use force, so it wouldn't be against the non-aggression principle. So I don't think it's a contradiction in libertarianism.
Yeah, I mean, this is already happening without force or violence. So
yeah, Bob, any other thoughts?
Yeah. Well, like, what if a bunch of people come into your state or your community or your country that aren't like you, and then turn it into a hellhole? You don't see
it happening in Texas.
I mean, why would people want to come here if they're statist? Wouldn't they rather go someplace else, like Vermont or I don't know, some other place like?
Yeah, the people that previously, and by the way, just to address that question, and thank you for the call tonight, Bob. That has been one of the objections for people when you bring up New Hampshire, like, hey, why don't you, freedom lovers, why don't you move here? One of the key objections is, well, haven't there been a bunch of freedom-hating people coming up from Massachusetts forever? That's one of the major objections that people bring up. And the reality, of course, is that, yeah, some people have come in from places like Massachusetts or New York or whatever, and that's because New Hampshire isn't free enough yet. These are the same people who are, many of them, scared to death if you walk down the street with no mask on. Okay? These people will want to leave. The more of us move here, the more freedom-loving people move here, the more afraid these cowardly statists are going to become.
Yeah, the government just canceled a meeting they were going to have because they were threatened by Frank Footloose and his friends not wearing cloth diapers on their faces.
Well, and also Footloose apparently said at this meeting, which was going to be of the governor and the executive council a couple days ago, Footloose said during this meeting, or like before it started, because there was like chanting and protesters were there, he said, "We know where you live." And so they said that was a threat, and the state employees had to leave under police escort. So, that these people are just such a bunch of pussies, and they're so afraid of freedom-loving people. And so the more of us there are, the more uncomfortable their lives become. And the reality is, and again, thanks for the call, Bob, I appreciate it. The reality is that people have already left.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. Like we already know people who have fled because
bad
of
people
who object to us.
I can think of some specifically.
Because of us, they've left because they're not winning, they're losing.
There used to be a group here in Keene. We've always had like haters here in Keene because we're activists and so we do things.
And this is a lefty kind of town. So
we make news, we make headlines, and so people hate you if you have an opinion and it's public. Obviously, some people who disagree with you are going to hate you for it. And so the group was called Free Keene from the Free Keene Stigma. Bit of a mouthful as far as the group name was concerned.
I always thought it's so dumb because it says Free Keene twice, and that's like all you hear. Free Keene,
right.
Free Keene, huh?
Yeah, but that was their thing.
Advertisement.
One of them was the owner of a coffee shop in downtown Keene. And he at one point came up to Sam Dodson, who used to be a co-host here on Free Talk Live, and technically like assaulted him by touching him with this coffee cup or battered him or whatever the legal term is. He didn't hurt him, but he did without permission touch him.
Did he spill on him?
He didn't spill it on him. He just I think the coffee cup was actually empty at the time, but it had like a message written on it. And this guy was one of the biggest opponents to liberty activists being here in Keene and in New Hampshire in general. And he moved out of town, sold his business, and moved to Los Angeles. And his daughter,
smart move.
Yeah, and his daughter, who was just like him, his daughter who was just like him, she went to Washington D.C.
Good for her.
There was another woman named Pam Martins who wrote for a website called counterpunch.org, I think it was. And this was like in 2006, 2007, that range of time. And she wrote anti-Free State Project hit pieces for Counterpunch, multiple hit pieces. She lived in Westmoreland, which is the town west of Keene. And she moved out. She and her husband sold their house and left the state. There was another woman named Susan the Bruce. She left more recently.
Did she die?
She ended up dying, but she left before she died. She hated Free Staters. She hated liberty activists. She was one of the most vehement anti-Free State Project bloggers in New Hampshire. She had a blog. I think you can probably still access it. And it constantly was attacking people like our co-host Nobody and me.
But she moved and then died?
She moved to Maine. And then she passed away. She was ill at the time, but she passed away out there. And so those are just a few that come to my head, just a few that I know of personally who were very loud-mouthed haters, and they're gone.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a weird way to phrase this, but I have a lack of better terminology to use. But like as free staters have gained power, so to speak, in the state, a lot of people, on the opposite side of this they're leaving.
They're pissed.
They've kind of admitted defeat.
They're upset too.
They're upset, and
they're not
leaving.
happy. And there's a whole article from New Hampshire Public Radio from last week that calls libertarians established in the state.
Yeah.
And they're not wrong. More coming up here in moments. 603-283-6160 is Free Talk Live.
If you want to bring more liberty into your community, there's something you should see. Intercoin, the movement you might want to join. If you like Bitcoin, break through. It's true. It's truly something new. If you'd like to see real prosperity, start your own currency, boost the economy. Intercoin, the movement you might want to join. If you like Bitcoin, its impact's hard to overstate, results you can appreciate. If you're tired of relying on the state, want to make your own community great, homelessness and hunger to eliminate, let the wealth accumulate. Don't wait for the growth rate to accelerate. Go to intercoin.org and get the coins for yourself.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. President Biden is pledging to get key planks of his domestic agenda passed by Congress, despite ongoing disagreements among members of his own party. He visited Capitol Hill today, flanked by his top strategists, and after meeting Democrat leaders in the House and Senate, plus members of the Democratic caucus, he told reporters he is determined that his spending bills will pass and will reach his desk to be signed into law.
I'm telling you, we're going to get this done. It doesn't matter when. It doesn't matter whether it's in 6 minutes, 6 days, or 6 weeks. We're going to get it done.
It is still unclear when those key bills will be put to a vote. Millions of households in Britain are facing higher gas and electric bills as new energy price caps take effect. From FSN's London bureau, Benji Hire reports.
About 15 million households in England, Wales and Scotland will be affected by these changes, which are being brought in amid a crisis in the industry, with 9 firms folding in recent weeks as a result of surging wholesale gas prices. This 12% increase to the cap that customers can pay, set by regulator Ofgem, also comes at a time of the year when people in the UK are about to start using more heating and electricity during colder, darker winter days.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is urging the public not to lose confidence in the Metropolitan Police, despite the conviction of a former officer on rape, kidnapping and murder charges. As anger grows in the UK over the force's failure to investigate the officer early, the Prime Minister spoke to reporters at number 10 Downing Street.
Should we believe in the police? Should we trust in the police? Yes, I do. Are there things we need to do? Yes, there are. Across a huge range of issues, from the way we handle these complaints to the way we speed up the whole criminal justice process. But should we have confidence in the police? Should we believe in policing? Absolutely.
The United Nations Secretary-General has told the Ethiopian government that the expulsion of 7 senior UN officials from the country is unacceptable. Antonio Guterres told Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed the officials are still in the country and that a looming famine there requires an international response. A new experimental COVID-19 drug has been shown in US trials to reduce hospitalizations by up to 50%. From FSN's Washington bureau, Caroline Malone reports.
Pharmaceutical company Merck said on Friday that molnupiravir reduces deaths and hospitalizations by half in people recently infected with the coronavirus. Vaccines remain the most effective way of protecting people against COVID-19, but drugs are needed to treat the many unvaccinated people around the world. At the moment, all therapies require an injection or IV, so a pill taken at home would be a breakthrough.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
us here, and a bunch of people have so far. I appreciate that. The number 603-283-6160. With you tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Chris. 603-283-6160. We started out talking about Venezuela. There's still more to say about this new redenomination of their currency. They're knocking 6 zeros off this time. Last time in 2018, it was 5 zeros, so that's a total of 11 zeros in just the last 3 years. Knocked off their currency.
It's increasing the number of zeros. That is not a good sign.
No, it's not. And we can tell you more about that. But your calls are more interesting, I think. So we're going to go to them. We will go first to the phones, to the fun. Footloose is on the line. In fact, the guy we were just talking about at a meeting of what was intended to be the governor of New Hampshire and his executive council. They were going to have a meeting about cronies, for sure. They were going to have a meeting about accepting $27 million in federal money for COVID nonsense. And Footloose, you were there with hundreds of protesters. Tell us about the scene. What happened?
So, yeah, there was probably close to 300 people outside.
Wow.
And this was a public hearing, obviously, to accept that $27 million in funding. And they picked a venue that only accommodated 75 people.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened was if someone left, they would allow one other person in. So they were keeping it to the exact fire code count. And I got in there pretty early.
Nice.
As just happened. I was by the door, and somebody was leaving. They said, "Oh, you want to go in?" I said, "Oh, sure. I want to go in there. Of course. That's what I'm here for."
Mm-hmm.
And once we got in, it was pure propaganda, of course. They had the 5-year-old kid governor get up there and do his little spiel about stigma for mental health amongst, grade schoolers who are depressed and committing suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And why are they doing that? Because of social distancing, masks, remote learning, and all that.
Right.
Right?
Fear.
So that's, of course, not anything that he mentioned at all. And then they had to do their little photo op. And all I said was, propaganda, got to get that photo op. A couple other people made some comments, whatever. And then they took a break, and then they were going to do the public portion at 10 o'clock. So this thing started at 7:30, we were told, and then weren't allowed in. And then we were told it was going to be 10 o'clock for the public portion. But they still were not allowing any of the public inside.
Huh.
There were over 200. A lot of people had to leave, and there was like 200 people left outside that weren't allowed inside to participate. So I made comments, which the news is not sharing, but we do have video of. I asked the cops, I said, this is a public hearing, public accommodation. You have to allow these people outside, inside, or you have to reschedule this thing. And so that's what I was yelling and screaming about to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
But also, more important is that money has strings attached.
Of course it
and
does.
Those strings attached are for a vaccine registry, vaccine passport, tracking and tracing, contact tracing, and last but not least, isolation and quarantine.
Oh, boy.
And
Quarantine
then
camps.
Also, whatever else in the future the federal government decides to tell us to do to keep that funding going. So there's all these other unknown strings attached. But COVID can't for the dirty unvaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Here's a question. I don't know if you followed this process. I ended up having a question about like the political procedure here, because I read a story from New Hampshire Public Radio earlier this week. I didn't put it on the air, but I did mention it. It was about the liberty-minded people that are behind some of these protests that are going on, some of the groups that are anti these COVID crackdowns, and they cited a committee of state representatives where the committee leader refused this $27 million. Like, the committee voted down the $27 million. So how did this thing get in front of the governor? Do you know?
I'm not exactly sure. And there were certain groups and individuals that were pushing for us to allow the vote to take place. But we cannot allow the possibility of a yes vote on this. Mm-hmm. They need to reject it in hand. Another thing the governor made comments on after the fact, he said, yeah, and we're waiting for the AG to put out a memorandum regarding the legality of this thing, because other comments that the governor made were that we're going to enter into this contract, but they can't hold us accountable to the terms. We're not going to, basically he was insinuating, we're not going to do COVID camps. We're not going to do anything that they ask us to do while we're getting the money. And that's obviously complete BS.
Yeah, trust him. He's a government guy. Trust him.
Trust him. Trust him. Yeah, trust him. He's lied.
Right.
He said threats were made. He said there were many direct threats. The guy that he was talking to on the radio said the man bun guy, he identified me in particular and said he said that I threatened the 5-year-old kid governor.
We were speculating. What was the threat? Was it wearing a mask or was it something else?
No.
Was it raising your voice? Was that the threat?
It's pure smokescreen. Pure smokescreen. They're saying people felt threatened and they were in fear for their lives because they knew they were going to try to spin it against us instead of saying, well, we messed up and had a venue that didn't accommodate the public and we have to change it to be able to accommodate the public.
That's what it was. It was. I have to say, the union. I think it was the union leader piece was extraordinarily entertaining. They compared, if I'm not mistaken, you guys to the insurrection of January 6th, and I was thinking that's hilarious. It's literally it was a protest, or I don't even know if you could call it a protest. It was just basically people who objected.
People were speaking up in this meeting,
in a public meeting.
In a public meeting.
Yeah, and they didn't want to hear it, and so they ran away.
So this is, I did say, we know where you live because we do. It's public record.
But that was you were referencing a protesting at his house, correct?
Correct. And prior to this event, the day before, I sent texts and emails to all the executive council members explaining to them that they must vote no, otherwise we will protest at their houses too, because we know where they live.
So
it's public record.
They can't even claim ignorance, like of what you meant by what you said.
At all.
It was clear as day that you were not referencing any kind of violent revolt or anything of that nature.
They're acting as though they are under some kind of a threat. And here's the thing: I've seen some of the video from this event, and there are very clearly standing at the front of this room multiple uniformed state police officers, and we know from the way these goons have behaved outside of the governor's house, where they have arrested you and other people and ticketed people for doing what should be constitutionally protected free speech, free protests. Yeah, holding candles outside the governor's house. They will arrest you on the drop of a dime. The drop of a hat, they will arrest you.
When they're directed to, at least.
They don't need to be directed to. If you stand in this room and you openly threaten a little boy or the governor or anybody else standing in there, you better believe those cops are going to swarm you and handcuff you and drag you out. And they didn't, did they?
And let me touch on that. So this is the important thing. The governor, in his little radio thing where he slandered me, he said that they couldn't arrest everybody, or they couldn't arrest one person, meaning me, because they would have to arrest other people, meaning Nurse Therese, and maybe some other people. But otherwise, and if we arrested them, it really would have got out of hand.
Oh, so he was worried that there would be some sort of uprising, and that like everybody would get hurt, the police would get hurt. So if that's true, then they will possibly be arresting people later, right? Like they will do that sometimes. They'll hold off on an arrest.
Come to your house when you're
come to your
alone.
house months later.
They do that routinely as a matter of practice.
They could have got me because at the end of the meeting, once they said we're canceling the meeting, a couple of the counselors came out. They said we're canceling it because some of the DHHS people that were in the room felt in fear, and they asked for escort. And then once everybody was gone and escorted to their vehicles, there were still some people lingering in the room, and the police asked me to clear the room for them.
Hang on. If you can stick with us, Footloose, we're going to bring it back here in just a moment, because I know there's more I think that he has to say, and you can share your thoughts with us here at 603-283-6160. Free Talk Live.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Because we are smothering in spam, please do not reply to all when you can instead reply. I was recently among over 100 invited to a corporate reunion. It's always a warm affair, and that's the problem. Enthusiasm for our upcoming get-together caused many recipients to RSVP the organizer with a cheery reply to all. I can't wait. Then others piled on with a reply to all to that. Then the "I'm out of my office now" autoresponders joined in. So I replied to all, asking that we all reply only to the organizer. Hey, at least I tried. One invitee, apparently retired, shot back, "Point taken, but I really like seeing the responses since they're so positive." Smiley face. This better be an open bar. From survivalspeech.com, I'm Holland Cook.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. Coming up, Coinbase has been hacked, or have they? We'll tell you a little bit more about that when we get the chance. Also, still more to go on the Venezuelan redenomination to what they're now calling the digital Bolivar, but they're still printing physical Bolivar. So we'll see what that's all about. Coming up here with you tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Chris.
And I want you to know about Bitcoin.com. It's a great source for learning about cryptocurrency because that is another great alternative for people. You know, they mentioned in this story about Venezuela that people have been using gold, for instance, to buy things, and they're also, some of them are using cryptocurrency there. In fact, Caracas is one of the, if not the biggest city for businesses accepting cryptocurrency. Like
Burger King accepts crypto there, which is so weird.
They're
really,
as I understand it, yeah. That's actually like a year old. That's kind of old news at this point. But if you go and you look at the different maps of places in the world that accept crypto, Caracas is one of the highest concentrations out there. Now, Keene is up there too. So I don't know if we beat Caracas or Caracas beats Keene.
I mean, that's a large city compared to Keene.
I'm talking about per capita.
Okay.
And Keene is, pretty solid as far as its crypto acceptance is concerned.
Oh, definitely.
So head over to Bitcoin.com. You can learn about Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. Just click Get Started at the top of the page over at Bitcoin.com. And if you are not new to cryptocurrency, then you can go to the news site there over at news.bitcoin.com and get the latest news headlines from the world of crypto. Let's go back to Footloose, calling us from New Hampshire, giving us the rundown on what actually happened in this news-making, headline-generating meeting, or what was supposed to be a meeting between the governor of New Hampshire, Chris Sununu, and the executive council, which are the five men and women that sort of control spending. The governor, for instance, I believe there's like a limit on the amount of spending that he can authorize all by himself. If it's a large amount, he has to go to the executive council. So they were going to have a meeting about accepting $27 million and a bunch of strings attached to it from the federal government. And Footloose, you were there with hundreds of protesters at this particular meeting, and they canceled the meeting claiming they were afraid for their lives and scurried out the door, and now they're saying they're going to have it at another time and date. By the way, did you hear that Sununu, the governor in New Hampshire, also canceled an appearance he had out here in Walpole, New Hampshire? Like
Allison's Orchard
thing, yeah.
Yeah, Allison's Orchard. Canceled that in advance.
We were going to be coming there in droves.
Nice.
Most of our people are the ones that got all the tickets.
Love it.
We had lots of people, proxies, getting 10 tickets each. So,
He's so cowardly. He won't even show up to events now, it sounds like. And yet they're still planning on having a public meeting. There's been another one scheduled that they canceled this week. Is that right?
Yeah, so they're supposed to be having another public one at a different location. I heard that it was going to be at UNH on the 13th.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not confirming that through the state, but my contacts are telling me that.
Where's UNH?
Manchester?
Isn't that USNH?
No, Dover.
Okay. Oh God, that's a long trip.
It's this guy. The governor he's kind of it's pretty hilarious. Like, didn't they cancel? Didn't he cancel like his inauguration or something?
Yeah, he did.
Over like
it's
a fear
thing.
for his life or something like that because
Same
of protesters.
Same thing.
Yep.
Yeah, and then they had it in secret
because of the candlelight vigil that we had outside his house.
Yep.
He canceled his inauguration because he claimed that armed protesters were in his backyard. Nobody stepped foot on his property. We have all the video to prove it.
Yep.
We have legal representation on that as well. He gave tickets out to what we're calling the Newfields 9, and there were 9 of us that got $100 tickets. Skylar Bennett, Savage Truth 603, go give him a follow on YouTube and Facebook. He got arrested. He was the gentleman who was carrying legally.
Yep.
He got his firearm returned that night when we bailed him out. So, like, their whole narrative is all about controlling public perception. There was no reason to cancel his inauguration. The reason he canceled it is because he heard that everybody was going to be out there with pots and pans and long guns, too, which is, of course, not violent. I know some people try to say open carrying or bringing arms to a protest is violence. That's violence.
Ridiculous.
No.
It's exercising your freedoms.
Right.
Yeah, it's exercising your rights. And in New Hampshire, we still have the right to, open carry unless you're a felon.
I find this hilarious, from the perspective of this is a state where you can bring your firearm into, at least until recently, into the state house.
You still can.
And yet he's afraid because there's somebody protesting outside his house that has a concealed weapon that they wouldn't even have known about had the police not made an arrest.
So Footloose.
And the only reason they arrested him was because he was trying to get an officer to identify himself, a masked officer who was not wearing a name tag or a badge. and he got butthurt, and he called in the goon squad that they had hiding around the corner, and 15 to 20 officers in riot gear showed up and marched up the path, and then he pointed at Skylar, and they arrested Skylar.
Yeah, it's crazy video. I mean, the whole thing that happened, and you're talking about something that happened back in like December, I think it was, or early January, end of December, early January. If you go back to the Free Keene blog, back in that time frame, you'll find that video there. It's pretty wild stuff. So Footloose, there's a big event scheduled for tomorrow in the state capitol near the State House. Can you just kind of give us a rundown of what to expect? What's happening?
So that is a permitted march, and let me pull it up here.
Why would somebody ask for a permit?
It's Health Freedom New Hampshire who's putting it on, and they want to do it.
Come on, guys.
I would my tactic is to do what we call the Ouroboros, and you walk in a single file line, and you just go across the crosswalks in a zigzag fashion wherever you want to go, and people have to stop for you briefly while you're crossing the crosswalk. We just did that in Nashua, and it worked very well.
Interesting.
But yeah, so this event is from 12 to 3 p.m. tomorrow, family friendly. It's going to be meet up at the State Library, 20 Park Street in Concord. And then at about 12:15, we'll march a half-mile loop, ending at the State House, and then there will be guest speakers, music, and more. People setting up tables and all that. It should be a great event, lots of people.
Yeah, I've heard rumors there might be hundreds of people at this particular event, and if you get hundreds of people to show up in New Hampshire, you have one of the biggest protests, in recent months. I mean, this sounds like it's going to be pretty big.
You know what I find kind of funny too about these, having been to some of these protests. It seems that it's very much people who would be the governor's supporters. So it's not just libertarians. There's
a lot of Republican
types, and it's just hilarious to see this. The whole thing unfolding, because it's like his own supporters don't support him.
Well, it's a great opportunity for people to mix together, and for people that are of the liberty mindset to maybe make some inroads and make some new friends and things like that. So
yeah, we're going to be interviewing people. Surveying people about New Hampshire independence.
Yep, that's we're going to be there for doing that. Footloose, anything else you want to share? I mean, I appreciate you spending some time with us tonight.
Yeah, so I just want to finish the story about that event.
Sure.
So after the cops asked me to clear the room, which I did, I was the last one in there with the police who are calling me Footloose. Why? Because I have friends in law enforcement. I worked with the Manchester Police Department. So I flew Sheriff Mack out here from Arizona. Okay? Like, that was $7,500 out of pocket that I recouped. I ended up only paying $250 for the whole thing. I recouped $7,250 of that. But that was a huge event as well that we put on. And so, yeah, I have law enforcement friends because I'm friends with good people. Not because they're cops, not because they're law enforcement, but because they're good people. I don't care if you're a politician or you're a cop. I care that you're a good person that lives according to principle. And so after I cleared the room, the officers asked me, they said, hey, people left signs everywhere. So Reopen New Hampshire is the one who made an event for that public hearing. And a lot of the people that left and had to go to work and that were not allowed inside ended up leaving their signs behind. And so there was like signs and trash strewn everywhere. The officers told me that the event organizers would be charged with littering if somebody didn't clean it up, and would I mind cleaning it up? And I said, no problem. I thank you for letting me know. And I cleaned up all the signs and all the trash, and I took it with me.
All by yourself.
Dangerous insurrectionist.
Yeah. And if you had been threatening, as the governor has been claiming that you were alone with the state police. If they'd wanted to clink the handcuffs on you, they certainly could have, and no one else would have even known about it. Thanks, Footloose. We'll see you tomorrow. Bonnie and I will see you tomorrow at the event.
Thanks for the time.
Good stuff there. And by the way, he's from Absolute Defiance. If you check him out on various different platforms, it's Footloose with Absolute Defiance. Hour 3's coming up.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. President Biden is pledging to get key planks of his domestic agenda passed by Congress, despite ongoing disagreements among members of his own party. He visited Capitol Hill today, flanked by his top strategists, and after meeting Democrat leaders in the House and Senate, plus members of the Democratic caucus, he told reporters he is determined that his spending bills will pass and will reach his desk to be signed into law.
I'm telling you, we're going to get this done. When? It doesn't matter when. It doesn't matter whether it's in 6 minutes, 6 days, or 6 weeks. We're going to get it done.
It is still unclear when those key bills will be put to a vote. Millions of households in Britain are facing higher gas and electric bills as new energy price caps take effect. From FSN's London bureau, Benji Hire reports.
About 15 million households in England, Wales and Scotland will be affected by these changes, which are being brought in amid a crisis in the industry, with 9 firms folding in recent weeks as a result of surging wholesale gas prices. This 12% increase to the cap that customers can pay, set by regulator Ofgem, also comes at a time of the year when people in the UK are about to start using more heating and electricity during colder, darker winter days.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is urging the public not to lose confidence in the Metropolitan Police, despite the conviction of a former officer on rape, kidnapping and murder charges. As anger grows in the UK over the force's failure to investigate the officer early, the Prime Minister spoke to reporters at number 10 Downing Street.
Should we believe in the police? Should we trust in the police? Yes, I do. Are there things we need to do? Yes, there are. Across a huge range of issues, from the way we handle these complaints to the way we speed up the whole criminal justice process. But should we have confidence in the police? Should we believe in policing? Absolutely.
The United Nations Secretary-General has told the Ethiopian government that the expulsion of 7 senior UN officials from the country is unacceptable. Antonio Guterres told Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed the officials are still in the country and that a looming famine there requires an international response. A new experimental COVID-19 drug has been shown in US trials to reduce hospitalizations by up to 50%. From FSN's Washington Bureau, Caroline Malone reports.
Pharmaceutical company Merck said on Friday that molnupiravir reduces deaths and hospitalizations by half in people recently infected with the coronavirus. Vaccines remain the most effective way of protecting people against COVID-19, but drugs are needed to treat the many unvaccinated people around the world. At the moment, all therapies require an injection or IV, so a pill taken at home would be a breakthrough.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, ending the week with a look in more detail at the issue of conservatorships, after a judge in California removed Britney Spears' father from playing that role in her life. But she's by no means the only person out there who has been struggling legally to secure control of her own affairs. In the singer's case, the whole issue came about because of her challenges with mental health and addiction. But Dr. Anne Olivarius, chair and senior partner of McAllister Olivarius, who works with victims of abuse, says it's high time for US law to change and do away with the whole concept of conservatorships.
This has been a human rights violation of a high dimension in the United States. It's hugely embarrassing that this should have been allowed. Now, nobody knows whether Britney is in good mental health or not. Bless her. Let's hope that she can carry it off and she can actually be an excellent example for the abolition of conservatorships for very many people, because it's a terrible legal entity, conservatorships, when they're not fairly applied.
She argues there's an element of sexism in the way conservatorships often operate, with male figures invariably taking over the financial and property affairs of female wards. The US Justice Department says there are an estimated 1.3 million conservatorships in the US, with total assets totaling more than $50 billion. The main news again, President Biden is urging Democrats to unite and pass 2 spending bills that are critical to his domestic agenda. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is urging the public not to lose confidence in the Metropolitan Police, despite the conviction of a former officer on murder charges. And the UN Secretary-General has told the Ethiopian government the expulsion of 7 senior UN officials from the country is unacceptable. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
From the admission event colony 000082567 KLN 00067X into the Union in 1897 to the day in 1817 when embarrassed construction workers realized they put the Erie Canal in the wrong place. The Onion looks back at This Week in History. On August 5, 1962, Nelson Mandela was jailed until 1990, becoming fully rehabilitated through the South African penal system, and thanks to the services provided to him while imprisoned, emerged from jail a successful politician and internationally revered symbol of peace. Mandela's record of overcoming hardships and moving South Africa beyond its formidable racial struggles is a lasting testament to South Africa's correctional facilities and prove that the penal system's small cells, demeaning work duties, and minimal rations are exactly the tools needed for a prisoner to truly become a reformed citizen.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, kicking off the third hour of the program here. Open phones, if you want to join us, the number is 603-283-6160. 603-283-6160. And in the studio with you tonight, it is Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Chris.
Of course, you can bring up whatever you want. And we still have a little bit more to say on the Venezuela situation. Plus, Chris, you're going to tell us about Coinbase getting hacked. We'll get into that when we get the chance. But your calls coming first here. Again, the number is 603-283-6160. If you're just tuning in, you may not have heard the news that in Venezuela, you may have heard that people there are in drastic poverty. In fact, it's shocking numbers. They continue to go up. 75% of Venezuelans now living in extreme poverty. And also, according to various news sources, today was the deadline for the old Bolivar. They're now knocking 6 zeros off of the Bolivar. And that started today. So if you had 1 million Bolivar yesterday, you now have 1.
Yeah, it wasn't always like this either. Before there was hyperinflation in Venezuela, there was simply inflation.
Even if you had 1 million Bolivar yesterday, just to be clear to people who don't understand, that's still only like having like $1 or less.
Yeah, that's like 25 cents worth of
25 cents.
Bolivar, yeah.
And now it's even less.
It is. It's like 20 cents. One Bolivar is like worth like 20 cents U.S. So we can talk more about that. In fact, I think that's what Scott wanted to talk about in Wisconsin. You're on Free Talk Live. Hello, Scott.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Hey, what's on your mind tonight?
I was just kind of thinking about Venezuela, and, that's got to cause a lot of confusion having 6 zeros chopped off is what you said, right?
That's correct. Yeah, that's this time. They chopped 5 zeros off back in 2018.
Yeah, this is the fourth revaluation, you said?
The third in 13 or 14 years.
Right. Yeah, so I got to think like most of the people there got to be thinking of other ways to exchange things of value and support the stores that they value the most and kind of have a relationship with certain, stores and getting things that they need. But it kind of puts it into perspective of like that's how we would have to kind of do things here, and gotta appreciate having other forms of money or things of value. And I have some gold backs. Those are pretty nice, and silver and stuff like that. And it's kind of nice. I kind of think about that on a daily basis now. Like, man, how easy is it? I could maybe, exchange some silver for something or whatever with people around me here and stuff like that.
And one of the things you have to do to put that out there is to start asking. If you have gold backs, which for listeners that don't know, that's the gold back is an amazing creation that came out a couple years ago. It is a physically gold backed currency. It's an actual piece of gold.
It's confusing when you say it's gold backed to people. Yeah. It's made of gold.
Correct. It's 1/1000th of an ounce.
It's not just backed by gold. It is
literally
gold.
Is gold. Yeah, it's 1/1000th of an ounce of gold that you can easily give to somebody, put it in their hand, and it's just beautiful. It's got wonderful artwork on it. There's a few different states. There's 2 more, I think, states on the way. South Dakota and Wyoming, yeah, I think are on the way. They already have Utah, Nevada, and New Hampshire. They're all interchangeable. They're all gorgeous. And so, if you want people to accept gold backs or silver or something like that, start asking. Usually it's going to have to be mom and pop business. Obviously, you're not going to convince Walmart to do it. But, local mom and pop businesses, you'd be surprised how many people are very interested in accepting these things.
I've definitely taken and spent gold backs on numerous occasions now. And it's pretty cool every time I have the opportunity to do it, but it's not quite to the extent at crypto that I can spend crypto in New Hampshire. But
it's also way newer.
Right? Exactly.
I'm just realizing when we went to Jen's fish market here in Keene, maybe we should have asked about goldbacks. That seems to be something she probably would have been more into.
You're saying because she didn't really care for the idea of cryptocurrency.
She said that sounds complicated. She just wants cash. She doesn't want to.
But I don't know. I don't think she would have wanted anything else other than dollars. I have a suspicion.
You don't know unless you ask, though.
It's true, and I think it wouldn't have hurt to ask. But
and the gold back appeals to a different group of people.
Yeah, it does.
People like us that see all alternatives as good things are obviously going to be interested, but also the people that are like, yeah, crypto, I'm too old for that. They're not too old for gold. They're not. Yep. Scott, anything else you want to share tonight?
No, I was just I definitely would like to get a hold of more gold backs, and I think that's a really good one to kind of get used to using in a local community, just in case things get worse. Like, I'm happy to hear in Venezuela that they're using crypto and I guess gold, and I kind of wonder what else they might be trying to, exchange a value and how they're doing things.
They're using other fiat currencies, so the dollar is very, very popular there now. It's used by 70% of stores of the population there. Some are trading in the peso from surrounding Colombia and the Brazilian, whatever that one was. I forget what that one was called, but they're using anything they can except for the Venezuelan Bolivar. Thank you, Scott, for the call tonight, man. Definitely appreciate hearing from you. The number is 603-283-6160. Because I remember when the gold back first came out, Chris, that we were at a local restaurant here, and we were having Social Sunday, which is our weekly event. This was before it went to the local Fun Noodle place called Fucking Great. It wasn't there. It was at Local Burger prior to that. And I remember pulling out, one of the first times I'd ever brought the gold back out. And it immediately attracted attention from an older man, probably in his late 60s, early 70s, sitting at a table nearby. And he just, they're noticeable. They catch the light because they're very reflective. They're very beautiful gold products. And he came up to me and he says, "What is that?" And, that guy might not have cared about Bitcoin.
Right.
But he was instantly interested in this. And there's a larger number of, I think, older folks who, they're old enough to know what gold is and, understand that it's got some value to it.
Yeah, I certainly think that you're probably right, just based on, a lot of these times that you've interacted with people, I've been there and I've seen it myself firsthand. So it's not like I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
I certainly would agree with you. The attitude of this particular lady seemed to be that she couldn't be bothered with anything else.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it was specifically Bitcoin. I have a sinking suspicion it wouldn't have mattered what you put in front of her.
I think you may be right.
Yeah.
That's a common reaction from most business owners because they're just so busy. And until something becomes clearly interesting, to them, if they're hearing from more than one customer about it, then they might start to take a thing with some level of seriousness.
It was interesting because she even said to Chris and I, she was like, "No, I had someone come in a couple weeks ago asking if I take those cryptocurrencies, and it seems too complicated for me and all this stuff. I just want checks and cash. I don't even want to deal with credit cards."
And I suspect
she takes checks.
I suspect that it wasn't Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, but probably some sort of
learning curve.
I don't know. What do they call those other? They're not currencies really. Like Google Pay, I think.
Electronic. Forms of payment.
Yeah, and Apple
dollars,
Pay or whatever they're. Yeah, I don't even know what they're called, but there's Samsung Pay. There's a bunch of them, and it's just basically linking to a credit card or something,
to
and then you use
account.
your phone to pay somehow.
Yeah,
she probably thought it was something like that, where they'd be taking a big fee from her and stuff like that.
And she didn't even give us. I tried to get it in there that this would solve the fee problem, but I didn't even get it. She wasn't even.
Doesn't have the time. Doesn't have the brain space to.
Maybe this one lady wasn't a good example for me to say we should have brought gold backs up, but the reason we
didn't even have a chance. She didn't even give us a chance.
Yeah, the reason that we kind of targeted this business was because she had a little card next to her card reader that said we have to charge a 3% fee or something like that because
and
I'm
pay
sorry
extra if you
I care about my customers, but
strategically I suspect we probably would have been better off going into that conversation before getting to crypto or gold backs, because then it would have given you an opportunity to kind of
build some rapport.
Rapport with her,
and
get her to understand that you're actually trying to help her and it's not like you're trying to sell her something.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and also that's one of the ways it helps to actually have rapport with the business owner by going to their business multiple times. They recognize you, they know you're a good customer, and then they take your suggestions even more seriously at that point. If they know that you're in there every week or
she
every
has
other
good
week
lobster rolls.
There's more coming up here. 603-283-6160. This is Free Talk Live.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com. Free Talk Live.
We're talking about piracy.
The Barbary pirates were attacking American merchant ships and taking the sailors into slavery.
Yep.
Which is a little worse than conscribing them like England was. England was just making them, do a little bit of work. I mean, it certainly was slavery, but to a much lesser extent.
Did they get the doubloons? Is what I want. Avast.
When somebody from the Sudan takes you into slavery, you're in slavery.
Yeah.
I mean, that's slavery in its rawest sense. So he sent over the Navy in order,
Well, that's the risk you take on the high seas.
Trying to think, this famous American pirate, but I can't remember his name offhand.
Blackbeard.
Now
Redbeard.
No.
Goldbeard. Maroonbeard.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get 1 free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. The phones are open if you want to join us. The number is 603-283-6160. And with you in the studio, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Chris. 603-283-6160. We were talking about earlier in the show the redenomination, the latest one. Just 3 years ago, they knocked 5 zeros off of the Venezuelan Bolivar. They changed from the Bolivar Fuerte, the strong Bolivar, to the Bolivar Soberano, or the so-called sovereign Bolivar. And now they're changing again, knocking 6 zeros off this time, to what they're now calling the digital Bolivar. But it's still physical. Now,
do they know what the word digital means?
I don't know. This is the same country's government gang that introduced the Petro, which was supposedly a quote-unquote cryptocurrency, and the release was just this botched-up disaster that still,
Did anybody ever actually get
supposedly the Petro?
Yeah, the Petro.
Supposedly, some people in Venezuela are able to access the Petro.
Uh-huh.
Not that you would want to for any reason in particular.
Uh-huh.
But honestly, I haven't heard much about the Petro since the last couple of years.
I'm curious if, could I go and actually pay with it in Venezuela? Because nobody's accepting it.
Because you're not... Well, first of all, I doubt anyone's accepting. But secondly, you're not a Venezuelan, so I don't think that you would have access to it.
Oh, interesting.
So it's like you have to be a citizen.
They put you through a know your customer process in order to even have a chance at getting one of these things.
So can an average Venezuelan, if they have Petro, can they spend it places?
I don't have any idea about that. I think it's like this. That's a good question, Bonnie, and that would deserve some research at this point. It's been more than a year or so since I've seen anything about the Petro, so I don't know what its current usability status is on that. It may just be a trinket.
Yeah, this is one of the problems that we have. We get these stories that we cover, and then like there's never any updates or info, so we don't know if they succeeded or they failed or what the story is. But it would be interesting. It would be interesting to find out.
I wonder if it's worth more than Bomb coin.
One thing is for sure, we're not going to get into that, Bonnie, because it requires a long explanation. It's an inside joke. The Bolivar has lost nearly all of its value in just over a decade, shedding almost 73% in 2021 alone. Now, this is according to France24.com. We're talking about how they're going to knock 6 zeros. They are knocked. It's happened. Today's day number 1 of knocking 6 zeros off of the Bolivar. Their annual budget of 115 billion Bolivar in 2007, then the equivalent of 50 billion, if held in the local currency, would be worth less than $1 today. What? Venezuela is battling its 8th year of recession as well as hyperinflation that reached nearly 3,000% in 2020 and more than 9,500% the year before, according to the central bank's own figures, which, of course, you can't really trust them. Because why would you believe what the central bank is telling you about how much money they're printing out?
Yeah, they won't even give you an honest value for your dollar if you bring it in.
Or in this case, the Venezuelan
No,
Bolivar.
if you bring in a U.S. dollar.
Oh, right. Yeah, I see what you're saying. If you take $1 into a bank, they will give you today. They will now give you. It would have been. I don't remember what the official numbers were. I think it was like 78,000 or something like that before yesterday. And now the official number is like 4 point something Bolivar per dollar. And already on the black market, you'll get more than 5 Bolivar per dollar on day number 1. So we'll have to check in next week and see what the black market Bolivar rate is at that time. In May, the government tripled the monthly minimum wage, but the new amount still wasn't enough to even buy a single kilogram of meat.
Oh my goodness.
Can you imagine living like this? 3 out of 4 Venezuelans live in
No,
extreme...
because I don't know how you survive.
Yeah,
I seriously don't.
This all goes back to how much is $3 worth of rice? Like, is that a box worth of rice even?
Yeah.
I mean, can you live 2 weeks on that? And then how do you put a roof over your head?
And I heard that they already ate all the cats and dogs and squirrels that live there.
And it's crazy. There's got to be some sort of there's got to be some way people are bringing in money that isn't from a job. It's got to be like
black market.
I don't know black market, but often these countries have people sending back remittances.
Remittances, yeah. Money coming in from outside. Yep.
And I'm wondering, that must be how people are surviving because $150, if you're making $3, every 2 weeks, that's right. $6 a month. That doesn't cover your rent,
right?
And doesn't. I don't even think that would cover enough for food to sustain you.
According to Bloomberg.com about the redenomination, banknotes and new coins will be issued. Bank accounts will be adjusted to reflect the redenomination. So if you logged into your bank account yesterday and then you logged into your bank account in Venezuela today, you have 6 zeros gone from your bank account balance. Debit and credit card purchases will become easier. There were so many digits involved in some transactions that merchants were forced to split the transaction into multiple card swipes. Because think about it. If you've ever run a retail establishment before and you've had one of those credit card machines where you punch in the amount and you swipe the person's card or whatever, those things only have 12 digits on it.
Yeah, I don't think at the Mighty Moo Smart I could type in this costs, $20 million.
Yeah.
I don't think I could.
And 20 million in Venezuela would have been a handful of dollars worth of, that would have been like $4. $5.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what our limit is. I remember we raised our limit at some point. I don't know if it was 20,000 or 10,000, but I remember raising it because we couldn't process more than a certain dollar amount. Mm-hmm. But just to think about what that would be in Venezuelan currency,
it's mind blowing.
Yeah, there's no way. There's no way. You'd probably have to do 1,000 transactions or more in order to get certain amounts that sometimes are processed on credit cards.
Leida Leon, a 37-year-old cleaning worker at a Caracas school, said, quote, "This is useless. Prices will continue to rise, and in a few months, the new bills will be useless," unquote. Now, this goes back to a discussion we had earlier about whether or not people are aware and how they, feel about these sorts of things. This is just a janitor working at a school. Like, this person isn't in some sort of economic job position or whatever. They're not working in a, academic university or something. And they know, this person, Leida, knows that this is all a shell game and this is not going to help them in any way, shape, or form.
But does he understand why or how it's, why this is happening, right? Like, what's the cause of it? And that's the thing I'm not sure that people fully understand.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, obviously, everybody's individuals. Some people are going to understand it and some people aren't. But I think you're motivated to try to understand these things when they're literally stripping away hundreds of percentages of value.
You would certainly think you would be.
Do they have voting there? Like, do they vote for Modelo?
Yeah, but Maduro. And Modelo is a
beer,
alcoholic beer.
My bad.
But they do have elections, but they're controlled, right?
That's what I was going to say, because I was going to say in America, we just vote for people like that would do this to our dollar. Well, like, people really do vote for them, but I don't think that these people, I'm pretty sure that their elections are just made up.
So some people would refer to them as rigged, but it's more like they have goons that go around intimidating people.
Yeah, they actually arrested the opposition guy a few years ago.
Yeah,
they put him in a jail cell while he was running against the president.
Yeah, I mean, basically, you are not allowed to effectively, you're not allowed to run against the president.
All right, so we're going to get into a different story coming up here. Coinbase has been hacked, apparently, or were they hacked? We'll get a little bit more about what happened, because there are a lot of people passing around this news. And Chris, I think you've got the story about this, although all three of us had seen this news. So we'll get into it coming up here. And, of course, your calls and thoughts are welcome. 603-283-6160. This is Free Talk Live.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Karl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. President Biden is pledging to get key planks of his domestic agenda passed by Congress, despite ongoing disagreements among members of his own party. He visited Capitol Hill today, flanked by his top strategists, and after meeting Democrat leaders in the House and Senate, plus members of the Democratic caucus, he told reporters he is determined that his spending bills will pass and will reach his desk to be signed into law.
I'm telling you, we're going to get this done. When? It doesn't matter when. It doesn't matter whether it's in 6 minutes, 6 days, or 6 weeks. We're going to get it done.
It is still unclear when those key bills will be put to a vote. Millions of households in Britain are facing higher gas and electric bills as new energy price caps take effect. From FSN's London bureau, Benji Hire reports.
About 15 million households in England, Wales and Scotland will be affected by these changes, which are being brought in amid a crisis in the industry, with 9 firms folding in recent weeks as a result of surging wholesale gas prices. This 12% increase to the cap that customers can pay, set by regulator Ofgem, also comes at a time of the year when people in the UK are about to start using more heating and electricity during colder, darker winter days.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is urging the public not to lose confidence in the Metropolitan Police, despite the conviction of a former officer on rape, kidnapping and murder charges. As anger grows in the UK over the force's failure to investigate the officer earlier, the Prime Minister spoke to reporters at number 10 Downing Street.
Should we believe in the police? Should we trust in the police? Yes, I do. Are there things we need to do? Yes, there are. Across a huge range of issues, from the way we handle these complaints to the way we speed up the whole criminal justice process. But should we have confidence in the police? Should we believe in policing? Absolutely.
The United Nations Secretary General has told the Ethiopian government that the expulsion of 7 senior UN officials from the country is unacceptable. Antonio Guterres told Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed the officials are still in the country and that a looming famine there requires an international response. A new experimental COVID-19 drug has been shown in US trials to reduce hospitalizations by up to 50%. From FSN's Washington Bureau, Caroline Malone reports.
Pharmaceutical company Merck said on Friday that molnupiravir reduces deaths and hospitalizations by half in people recently infected with the coronavirus. Vaccines remain the most effective way of protecting people against COVID-19, but drugs are needed to treat the many unvaccinated people around the world. At the moment, all therapies require an injection or IV, so a pill taken at home would be a breakthrough.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. Open phones. If you want to join in here, the number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. With you in the studio, it's me, Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Chris.
We've been talking about money overall tonight, specifically government money so far, the worst kind of money out there. Venezuela knocking 6 zeros off their currency starting today. So they're doing another redenomination just 3 years after they knocked 5 zeros off. It's getting, to the point 11 zeros is really hard to comprehend as far as how large of an amount of zeros that is off of something.
If I saw that number, my brain would just freeze.
Yeah.
I seriously hate reading numbers with a whole bunch of zeros.
And so they've done that. We talked a lot about it, but let's talk about solutions, because you did mention this earlier tonight. We talked about, hey, you're getting screwed by these governments. Yeah, the American dollar isn't being hyperinflated yet, but it could be any time. They could, all of a sudden start printing like crazy. In fact, I did look earlier at the numbers, and people say it's between like 22 and 40% of all dollars that exist were created in the year 2020. So they did a lot of inflation in the last year, like record level inflation, and they're trying to cover it up right now by saying, oh, it's only 5%. You can't believe these government people.
And it's crazy because it's not like they're doing other things too, like to deceive us, like
Sure.
the tariffs. I mean, they brought those back too. So
was this the Trump tariffs or the
Trump tariffs they brought back as well. So like it's and they didn't just bring back 10%, but they brought back at 25%.
Got to make up for lost time,
right? Which is a 13% increase, in terms of the cost of goods. So like it's not even just one thing. Like there's all sorts of different techniques that they use to kind of deceive us, and it's like, oh, man, it's sick. It's so sick.
So we talked about some alternatives. You and I were discussing gold backs, which are 1/1000th of an ounce, beautiful art pieces basically that are tradable. They're incredible. There's also, of course, cryptocurrency. And cryptocurrency is amazing. It's been a tremendous success over the last 12 years that it's been around, almost 13, coming up in January. I think it'll be 13 years since Satoshi Nakamoto released Bitcoin to the world.
That happened in January?
I believe it was January of 2009, if I recall correctly. And that, of course, has changed everything.
Oh my! It makes international trade so much easier. I wish more people would use it.
Yeah, if it's accepted.
It is, and I frequently get payments from overseas
from customers.
For my business but I just wish everybody would use it.
That's
right?
what I'm saying.
As opposed to a percentage.
You're still probably paying most of your vendors with U.S. dollars, right?
Actually, surprisingly, there's a lot of upstream vendors that we pay in cryptocurrency.
That is a surprise. Good.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. Is it a majority yet or not quite?
Oh no.
Okay.
1%,
10%?
That's a good question. I don't know. It's probably like somewhere between 10 and 25%.
All right. Double digits. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. It's like it's more than you would think.
I'm surprised. Yeah, that's great.
I can't say that we've had any $100,000 like type transactions with crypto, but I would say like $20,000 transaction.
Nice.
Those types of smaller
and it
transactions.
made it easy,
that are,
didn't it?
Decent sizes. Yeah, sure.
So one of the things we recommend to people here on Free Talk Live is if you're going to get into cryptocurrency, and obviously there's risks involved, it could go down, but of course the government money is going to go down. That's a guarantee. Cryptocurrency could also go up, and it seems like it generally tends to over time, but obviously we can't predict the future. If you're going to get into it, one of the most important things to remember is not your keys, not your coins. Meaning if you give your cryptocurrency to a company like Coinbase, or if you buy it from Coinbase and you never take it off of Coinbase, you never put it in your own wallet, in what they call a non-custodial wallet, which sounds kind of confusing, but what it means is the wallet company, the manufacturer, does not have custody of your funds. They do not have custody of your cryptocurrency private keys. And in the case of Coinbase and all of the other centralized exchanges out there, they all have control over your funds. And what happens when you do this, Chris? What could happen?
You lose it. You could, and people do all the time. It's happened repeatedly with exchanges over the years.
Or they'll obey the government and freeze your money when the government asks them to.
There's all sorts of things that are going on when it comes to people losing their money because they entrust somebody else to hold it for them. Right. And if you don't understand that your crypto is being held by somebody else, you are bound to, lose it. And maybe you shouldn't, if you can't understand this concept, you maybe shouldn't even be using cryptocurrency. But anyway, so yeah, I've got a story here from bleepingcomputer.com, and story is titled "Hackers Rob Thousands of Coinbase Customers Using MFA Flaw." So
multi-factor authentication.
Yes, that's what it stands for. Crypto exchange Coinbase disclosed that a threat actor stole cryptocurrency from 6,000 customers after using a This isn't like 6,000 customers over the last year. This is 6,000 customers at a single time.
Really?
And I find it interesting that it's there. This is this thing I always find interesting. It's never Coinbase, or the exchange that the money was stolen from. It's their customers that the money was stolen from. And yet Coinbase is the one that's holding that crypto for their customers. You would think that if it's stolen from Coinbase, it's Coinbase's obligation. It's not from the customers. But especially in this particular case, because it's an attack on Coinbase's infrastructure, and it's not a situation where a Coinbase customer, gave their password to somebody else, or,
So it's not? So it was actually Coinbase's fault in this case?
Coinbase itself is at fault. So it has to do with poor security is what it comes down to. On Coinbase's part. They're using antiquated technology for authentication effectively. So let's see here. From 6,000 customers after using a vulnerability to bypass the company's SMS multi-factor authentication security feature.
Oh, wow. Okay, because SMS itself is a vulnerability.
SMS isn't a security feature.
Right.
But yet that's how they are treating it.
Yeah, but they're saying they bypassed that entirely.
They did, yes.
Which is even, that's a real failure.
Right.
Just to explain for our listeners, SMS is the texting system, right? And the reason why it's a risk to use this as your multi-factor is somebody who knows what they're doing can easily socially engineer your phone company into transferring your account to their phone.
And it happens all the time.
Yeah.
And this is the crazy thing. It's like people have to, if you don't want to have, if you're going to use an exchange, one of the things you don't want to do is use a phone number that you give out publicly, right? Because that is the means by which
the attack vector.
The attack vector occurs.
What you're saying is somebody tried to, a hacker tried to log into somebody's account on Coinbase using the public phone number and then just guess the password?
They've done that. They've
not in this case, but
right,
yeah.
In this case, there was some sort of vulnerability on the website that allowed them to bypass that step entirely. So they found a bug in Coinbase's site, and it allowed them to basically, as you say here, simultaneously hack 6,000 accounts, which is incredible. It almost sounds like an inside job.
I mean, this isn't even like. It's hard to say it's not the accounts, but because I guess it sort of is. But this is them hacking Coinbase. This is not like it was already vulnerable, but because it's not a security feature, SMS, but it goes farther than that. They've broken effectively into Coinbase's system because even though they access 6,000 accounts, there's nothing that would have stopped them from accessing 100,000 accounts, assuming they have 100,000 users, right? So it's not just like they broke into people's accounts for whom they've managed to, deceive into giving up their passwords. This is a direct attack on Coinbase.
And didn't Coinbase take like 6 years to admit to this? Or maybe not 6 years, but years to admit to this?
I think it was like it does give the time frame in one of these stories.
We can get into the story, though, when we come back.
All right, there's more coming up here. The number is 603-283-6160. That allows you to bring up anything that you want. Were you involved in this? I mean, 6,000 customers, there's a chance you were one of them if you have a Coinbase account. You can call in, share your story, 603-283-6160. You can also bring up anything that's on your mind here in the remaining moments of Free Talk Live, which are coming up.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless Crime Spree.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
Your amp will directly change more lives by getting Free Talk Live in front of people looking for talk radio online and on the air. When you amp Free Talk Live, you get perks like access to the AMP-only Facebook group and AMP podcast. Visit amp.freetalklive.com. The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
Do you appreciate what we do? Help us advertise, market, and promote for just $5 a month at amp.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Moments remain here. If you join us now, you can get on with us. The number is 603-283-6160. 603-283-6160. Tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Chris.
And don't forget, you can join us online. We've got a social media website that we launched, so we're running the thing. It is not some big tech corporation. It's what's called Mastodon. And I know you're a fan of Mastodon, Chris.
Absolutely.
In fact, I think you guys have your own server over at, I won't say what it is, but you have your own server.
Well, it's public, social.popcall.me.
Yeah.
But you can't sign
it's
up
closed.
for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a closed server.
Because you can configure the server however you want to. So if you want to have your own server with only 3 accounts on it,
which
you can
is
do
literally what we got.
Yeah. Or you can have ours, which is open to anybody that wants to come and sign up. So head over to social.freetalklive.com and you can do that. It is basically copying what they do with Twitter with the hashtags and the tagging people and all that. It's just not Twitter. It looks a lot like it.
Well, it's way more than just not Twitter.
Yeah.
It's decentralized or federated, really. And that basically means that you can't be canceled. You can't be,
You could be.
You could be canceled from individual servers, but not from the network in general.
Correct. Every Mastodon server has its own set of accounts, so you can just move to the next one if you want to, or better yet, start your own. Of course, that's the best way to ensure you won't be canceled is if you're running the thing. And it's federated, which means that they're, by default, connected together with the other ones. So there's thousands of these servers out there. When I search for a username, it's going to show me other options that are off of the server for that same username. And it's pretty interesting. And it's free to use, so go check it out. Give it a try over at social.freetalklive.com. It's open source. It's another important point, which means that there's different software available to interface with this. So, of course, you can just use the web interface, sort of the default interface, or you can download an app. I'm just curious, do you have an app for Mastodon, or do you just use the web interface when you use it?
I do have an app, and I use something called Fedilab.
Fedilab, yeah.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
I've seen it before. Fedi, right?
Yeah,
L-A-B?
Fedi.
Yeah, and so there's different apps for Android, iOS, Windows, Linux.
Oh, yeah. Mine on iPhone is Amarok with a Q.
And you can also access it just using a regular browser, too.
Yeah, you can. But it's nice to have the app. You get the notifications.
It does. Well, I mean, one of the nice things about the web, accessing via the web, is that if you're somewhere that you maybe on a computer you don't usually use, you can still log in.
Yep, and I believe you can even do two-factor authentication with Mastodon if you really want to secure your account to the max. That is available as a feature.
And I bet you it's way more secure than
Coinbase.
Twitter.
Twitter, sure, but we're talking about Coinbase.
Or Coinbase, yes.
which has two-factor authentication. They're using SMS, and somebody found a bug. Now, you actually pointed out here during the break that we failed to realize that in order to get to the multi-factor section of logging in, you do have to have the person's password. So somehow they engineered 6,000 passwords from Coinbase customers.
We weren't entirely wrong with what we said exactly. It's just that I guess we kind of were with a partial part of this. So they couldn't just do it to anybody, but it's still a failure in the MFA, the multi-factor authentication, like a major bug, because it doesn't do what it was supposed to do, right?
Which is block someone who has the password, but not the multi-factor from getting into the account.
So in order to exploit, in order to get into these accounts, they also had to do what's called phishing, which is basically somebody tricks you into giving up your username and password.
Yeah, and if you go into
how does this happen?
Oh, there's many ways.
Like just somebody starting a conversation with you, because nobody's ever tried to do that to me.
Not paying attention to where the email is coming from, probably in most cases.
Email phishing is pretty common.
Yeah.
So, like, if you ever open up your spam folder on whatever, email service you might be using, you may see in there emails from quote-unquote Coinbase that they have identified as being dangerous, and that's because it's not coming from Coinbase. It just says that on the email from field, basically. But when you open the thing up, if you open this thing, which you probably shouldn't do, but if you do open it and then you hover your mouse without clicking, if you hover your mouse over the link, you may notice that it's like going to www.c0inbase.com. So it'll be some sort of manipulated spelling of the name Coinbase, or it won't even be anything like Coinbase. It'll just be like xyzq1.com or something. And you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't look right.
Okay, maybe this has happened to me because recently I was looking at my old email and it's just full of crap now.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw this one email and I clicked on the email, but I didn't click on the link in it. It said, "Thank you for completing your account on," and it was like some website I had never heard of, and it said, click the link to view your profile. And I was like, I'm not clicking that link because I don't know what the heck that is. But it almost tricked me. I was almost like, what did I create a profile on?
And that may actually be a phishing email because they're just sending out so much spam. And some percentage of users are going to have a account at that website. And so if they click that link and they enter their login credentials,
boom,
stolen. They're compromised. Yeah.
And no, it may not be that they were phished. That's possible. But it also might be an inside job. It could have been somebody inside of Coinbase that managed to get the customer info. They might have known about this weakness in the multi-factor, and they set this sort of up from the inside. That's a possibility. It's also possible that a hacker gained access to a database somehow and pulled the names from that way. But phishing seems the most likely.
Yeah, they're actually not clear in the story. They don't. They seem like they
That's
don't.
That's because Coinbase
know.
Isn't going to say if they do know, right? They're not going to reveal how they.
I mean, if it was an inside job, they probably wouldn't.
Yeah, no way.
Reveal
especially
that.
like the fact that they took a long time to even admit that this happened, it makes them look really suspect.
Did that? Did you read the story?
No,
already?
Because
I've
just
looked
heard
at
about it
okay.
today.
And I don't have it in front of me, but it was at least most of a year, if not longer.
I don't know why I thought 6 years earlier.
It's interesting because I think there's a time frame by law, and I think that's what they were reacting to. So I'm a little confused as to why they waited a year if they're trying to comply with the law, because the law says they have to comply right away. Or within
it was
30 days
between March
something.
and May 20th of this year.
Okay. Even if a hacker has access to a Coinbase customer's credentials and email account, they are normally prevented from logging into an account if a customer has multi-factor authentication enabled. In Coinbase's Guide on Securing Accounts, they recommend enabling multi-factor authentication utilizing security keys, time-based one-time passwords with an authenticator app, or as a last resort, SMS text messages. But so what this is saying is it basically, even if you enable that, it isn't going to work. Normally,
because that was how they cracked in.
Right. So,
at least with the SMS, it sounds like maybe the one-time or passwords, the Google Authenticator ones, that seems like it would have been solid.
Yeah, it sounds like it because it's only the MFA,
the SMS one.
SMS part, that appears to have been broken.
I want to go to the phones to your calls and thoughts. Unscreened caller calling from 304 area code. You're on Free Talk Live. I think that's West Virginia.
Hello, gentlemen. That's correct. This is wonderful, wild West Virginia.
Hey,
you got it.
What's on your mind tonight?
Well, I'll tell you. I find that very few people actually hold cryptocurrency in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
All the supply chains that bring all the food to the stores and all of the goods and services out there are based upon the dollar.
They are, for now.
Now, what I'm looking at is the way they're spending money like drunken sailors.
Mm-hmm.
This latest debacle with the $1 trillion, bills, the big Build Back Better bill, so to speak,
mm-hmm.
which is it's if it weren't so dangerously something very dangerous to the dollar.
It'd be funny.
It's going to kill the dollar. As you recall, the Weimar Republic in the 1930s,
mm-hmm.
trying to get ahead of their debt that was put on them by the Allies after World War I to pay it back. they couldn't get ahead of that debt. It took a wheelbarrow full of Deutschmarks to actually buy a loaf of bread.
Sure.
So right now, we're going to, if we lose our reserve status in the world, the dollar loses it. We can no longer print money willy-nilly. In other words, we're going to have to start paying back things that we wouldn't normally have paid back.
When you say we, you're referring to the U.S. government. I mean, I'm not in debt.
No,
like
I'm not.
these people.
But it's all, you understand, they're pinning that on all of us.
Well, they can screw off because I'm not going to pay it. It's not my responsibility.
We digress. We digress. The point of the matter is this. When the dollar dies, all those supply chains, 99.99% of the population does all their business transactions in dollars. And when the dollar does die and it becomes wallpaper, all those supply chains that come from all over the world and all over the country will stop.
I don't know if you've heard this, and I wish we had more time to talk to you. Feel free to call in tomorrow night for more, but I don't know if you've heard, but there's over 500,000 shipping containers as of the last few days sitting off the coast of California because the supply chains are already effed up, and the dollar isn't even dead yet. It's not even close to being dead.
I think the dollar dying is funny, by the way, also.
I wish we had more time for it. We're out of time tonight. Thanks for the calls. If you didn't get on, call us tomorrow. See you then. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you're helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com. Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and